I curse you with my name. You shall be Blacula. Well, in that case, can I have a Bloody Mary? Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And tonight we are going to be doing a 50th anniversary audio commentary for William Crain's Blacula, released by American International Pictures in July of 1972. Now, I meant to do this commentary last weekend, but some things came up. I decided to shift it to tonight. And we are finally going to get started with this thing. I am paused on the MGM logo for Blacula. Now, I have seen this movie before. I've seen this and the sequel before. And they're both pretty good little AIP horror films. And well, also, I mean, Blacula should be recognized. I mean, it's the very first movie to win the first horror film award at the Saturn Awards in 1972. They had their first ceremony that year. Blacula won Best Horror Film and Best Science Fiction Film. I'm going to have to look up later because the title escaped me. But at the same time, I think we're ready to get started. I hope you all are enjoying the Halloween season and everything. And I figured that these two movies, Blacula Scream, perfect double feature for Saturday night. Absolutely. So why don't we get started? Paused on the MGM logo, and we'll get started on 3, 2, 1, and play. Hopefully the Lion approves of this movie, even though it's technically an American International picture, as we see the logo come up right here. Now, American International Pictures, they also release the Dr. Phibes movies that we've been talking about for the past year. But we start here in Transylvania, 1780, Castle Dracula, and And here we have our film star, our titular character of Blacula, William Marshall. And we will talk about William Marshall throughout these two commentaries that we're doing back to back. So in 1780 Transylvania, good evening, Rob. How you doing tonight, sir? I hope you've seen Blacula before, because this is a really a fun ride right here. Absolutely a fun ride. But yeah, this is William Marshall in the title role of Blacula, and we also have another actor here as Dracula, as you will see on the screen right here. And Count Dracula right here is played by an actor named Charles Macaulay. But don't have much more on this. They couldn't get Christopher Lee, unfortunately. I think it would have been pretty awesome if this was a Christopher Lee performance where he just dies, where he basically just puts the curse on Blacula in the beginning, and then we don't really see him again. Well, we do see him again in a flashback in the second movie, but we'll get there when we get there. But so at any rate, I had only seen these movies once before, and I enjoyed them for what they were. I would put them on the level of the Dr. Phibes movies. I mean, these movies are a lot of fun. They have their dated aspects, which we will definitely get to. I did with a Twitter buddy. I did a live thing with him a couple of years ago on Twitter, where we watched the movie and we tweeted our thoughts throughout. That was when I first saw these movies, and I was actually surprised at how much fun I had with them. I didn't really find either of these movies scary, but at the same time, in 1972, I could see how they could have gotten to some audiences. Yeah, a very interesting pick by by the Saturn Awards for this to be the best horror film of 1972. Above other horror films that we'll be doing commentaries on very soon, such as like "Don't Torture a Duckling" by Lucio Fulci and "Sisters" directed by Brian De Palma. But at any rate, we'll get to those before Halloween. Trust me, we will get to those before Halloween. But yeah, this is on the level of like the Dr. Phibes movies and the Frogs movies, and that, yeah, there's only one frog movie, frog movie. But these AIP films, they tended to just be a lot of fun, very much drive-in fodder and everything. And in the 1970s, I think it was inevitable that we would get a mostly black Dracula version, but I think this one succeeds on its own merits in many ways. Now, the black exploitation movement kind of started the year before in 1971, and I managed to dig them out. The late director Mario Van Peebles gave us "Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song," which was really the kickoff of the black exploitation movement in 1971. Still an incredible film. It's about a super stud who grew up in a brothel, and basically he escapes from the police, and he has to run and run and run across miles and miles and miles of the city, fleeing to Mexico, because he helped a friend out who was being basically assaulted by police. He got the police to stop and basically beat them down, and basically started running because he knew if he got caught by the cops that it wouldn't end well with him in prison. So he has to run over the course of this entire movie. Exceptional independent feature that I urge you all to check out if you've never seen. And of course, we also had Shaft. And yes, this is the Criterion version of Shaft. I am going to be doing Shaft's big score later on this year. I meant to do it earlier in the year, but we will also do that with Superfly. I was actually thinking about doing these on New Year's Eve, believe it or not. Superfly and Shaft's big score. But those were also big 1972 hits around this time. And so Blacula was kind of like the the answer to this genre in terms of horror. And so we ultimately got this. And then, of course, we had Lady Sings the Blues. I did a commentary on this where, you know, uh, uh, we now had musicals with, a lot of black artists in it that really took the box office by storm at a time when many producers thought that that would have been impossible. So huge international hit that Lady Sings the Blues was. So here again, I think it was inevitable that we were going to have a horror film like this that would go along with Shaft and Superfly and all those other films. But I still think it's actually pretty good. I think this is actually one of the better Dracula vampire films out there. And I'm not the biggest fan of that genre. I mean, vampires have never been my thing, but I really love this title sequences where this is really really cool. Where we basically have a little animated segment where we see this, this animated bat, follow this woman in red around these, these animated drawings and everything. It's really really interesting. I really do love this opening sequence. And of course, this movie is distinguished by a funk soundtrack that this gives this movie a particular mood and everything, which I find particularly delicious. If you recognize the actor Elisha Cook, that is indeed Elisha Cook Jr., who was of course in some pretty huge Humphrey Bogart films in the 1940s. The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon. He has key roles in both of those movies. Music composed and conducted by Gene Page. Yes, indeed. Both these Blacula movies are actually very much distinguished by their music, performed by the Hughes Corporation. Yes, we will talk about them because they will actually appear and play their music on screen, which is certainly very, very welcome. Title designed by Sandy DeVore. Yes, excellent. Cars furnished by the Chrysler Corporation. That's a credit you don't often see. Well, thank you to Chrysler for all the cars in the movie. Yes, absolutely. Uh, hey, Cliff Booth, how you doing tonight? I've always enjoyed this one. Yeah, like I said, dated aspects, and it's not, it's far from perfect, but I do enjoy it immensely. And I think I might enjoy the sequel just a little bit more, but only because of some certain connections and everything. Even though I don't know, we'll get to the sequel when we get to the sequel, obviously. But like I said, like the directed by William Crain, right there, like the Doctor Phibes movies, I do think that these are very much equal, and I do believe that they make both the Doctor Phibes movies and the Blacko movies. They both make like quintessential double features. You know, I think the sequels to both the originals work in spite of themselves. But here we open up on some flamboyantly a very flamboyant couple, as you can see. I mean, here again, very progressive for 1972. I don't know how this would play well with LGBTQ audiences now. These characters right here, but be prepared because there is going to be some politically incorrect. Homophobic slurs dotted throughout this movie, which is it's the one wound that unfortunately will never heal, despite the fact that I do enjoy this movie and the sequel immensely. The sequel has much less of that. Here, there are moments which could have been easily cut or easily ADR'd, and it's a little frustrating that it's not. It makes me think of the first two Bill and Ted movies where they say the F word, and yes, they're going to use the same F word in these movies, and I'm not talking about fuck. So it's the one thing, it's the one tiny thing in an otherwise perfect picture, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's the one thing you wish you could just take out and it would be a perfect movie. Now, these two gentlemen right here, Bobby McCoy and Billy Schaefer, are the character names. They're played by actors Ted Harris and Rick Metzler. Okay. And this movie does have a very interesting cast, but I am not sure who plays the actor that actually brings all this material to their attention now that we're in the present day being 1972. All this stuff, including Blacula's coffin, will be going to 1972 Los Angeles. How convenient. Oh, Chrysler! Thank you, Chrysler. Now, obviously, there are other cars aside from Chrysler, but it's like they didn't provide every single car in this movie. Oh, I can't wait to start tagging all these goodies. Really? I'm going to light one of the greasy lamps. So, yeah, so this film was released to mixed reviews when it came out on July 26, 1972, by American International Pictures. Got mixed reviews, but it got the Saturn Award and it got the sequel, and it did inspire more black exploitation themed horror movies. one regrettable one, which was Blackenstein, which came out right after Scream, Blacula Scream. I'll talk about that one a little bit more later, but and a lot of these films would be dotted with, these, stereotypical characters like a spook or a primitive or a mystical darky or a voodoo doer or a heroic death wisher or a ghetto dweller, seductress, brute. You get the idea. Um, all these films were marked with those kind of characters, but usually there was a lot more creative control by the black directors and producers behind the scenes. So it was kind of it was kind of a give or take. Well, we're working within this genre, and we have these limitations, but at the same time, we can at the very least provide an outlet for other black artists and let them speak their voices in the medium for once. Because you got to remember, that a lot of black artists were shut out of Hollywood for many, many decades before the early 1970s. I'd like to think that Russ Meyer kind of broke the mold with Beyond the Valley of the Dolls with some of his characters in that movie, because that even predated Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. But yeah, here's William Marshall and all his glory as Blacula, making a fresh start in 1972 Los Angeles. Well, these guys do have great reactions, though. That's the thing. All they had to do was react to Blacula coming back to life and ultimately biting their necks. When he sees blood, he gets thirsty. Oh, yummy! I mean, granted, we don't have Tom Savini doing the effects. I mean, it could have looked like something out of Dawn of the Dead right here, but God, look at that hair, man! I love it. Like I said, these movies were from a different time. Needless to say, very different, very very different era. So let's start with William Marshall. Let's start with William Marshall and find out where he came from. Well, he was also a director and an opera singer. He was born in 1924, and he's mostly well known for playing in the Blacula movies. But he also appeared as the king of cartoons on the 1980s television show Pee Wee's Playhouse, and as Dr. Richard Daystrom on the Star Trek television series. He was 6'5", 6'5", and was known for his bass voice. He attended New York University as an art student, transferred to the Actors Studio to study theater. He studied at the American Theater Wing and with Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. He made his Broadway debut in 1944 in Carmen Jones. And in 1950, he understudied Boris Karloff, of all people, as Captain Hook in the Broadway production of Peter Pan. He played the leading role of Delaude in the 1951 revival of The Green Pastures, a role he repeated in 1958 in a BBC telecast of the play. He also performed in several Shakespearean plays on the stage in the US and Europe, including the title role in at least 6 productions of Othello. Harold Hobson of the London Sunday Times praised Marshall's portrayal as, quote, the best Othello of our time. In 1968, Marshall joined the Center Theater Group at the Amonson Theater in Los Angeles to play Othello in a jazz musical version, Catch My Soul, with Jerry Lee Lewis as Iago. Marshall portrayed Paul Robeson and Frederick Douglass on the stage. He researched Douglass's life extensively and in 1983 produced and played the lead role in Frederick Douglass, Slave and Statesman. And that's just a window into William Marshall's accomplishments as an actor and a director. But he's honestly best known as Blacula for these two films, Blacula and Scream, Blacula Scream, which, like I said, we'll be watching at 11:30 tonight. Excuse me. We're going to be talking for 3 hours here. I need to keep myself hydrated. And I am not sponsored by them, but I'd like to make a little shout out to Trader Joe's for their French Market Sparkling Limeade. Yeah, this is not an official ad. I'm just being funny here, but yeah, just to let you know, all know what I'm drinking. I'm having French Market Sparkling Limeade from Trader Joe's. I absolutely love this. Mm. Yeah, it's either this or the spiced apple cider. Okay, so we now have some other actors come in on screen. In the role of Dr. Gordon Thomas right here, we have an actor by the name of Thalmus Rasulala. That's his name, Thalmus Rasulala. He was born in 1939. He passed away in 1991 at the age of 51 years old, very, very young. And he is noted for his starring roles in blaxploitation films. He was also an original cast member of ABC's soap opera One Life to Live from its premiere in 1968 until he left the show in 1970. His very first film was actually The Out of Towners, which was written by Neil Simon and starring Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis, and that came out in 1970. Moderate hit at the box office. And then in 1972, same year as Blacula, he was also in another blaxploitation heist film called Cool Breeze, released by MGM, loosely based on The Asphalt Jungle. It's actually the fourth film adaptation of that novel after Asphalt Jungle, 1950, The Badlanders, 1958, and Cairo, 1963. The film was released with the tagline, quote, "He hit the man for $3 million, right where it hurts, in the diamonds, and baby, that's cold." And so Blacula was his third film. It was his third film as he's playing Dr. Gordon Thomas here on screen as he tries to figure out what happened to Bobby right here. Well, either Bobby or Billy. I'm not sure which is which, which one is which. But at any rate, so Thalmus, he also played in Willie Dynamite, Mr. Rico, Cornbread Earl and Me, Bucktown. Also, Friday Foster, which is my favorite of all the Pam Grier movies, and we'll see Pam Grier a little bit later in Scream, Blacula Scream. But and he was also in Adios Amigo, The Last Hard Men, Roots. He played Amoro Kinte, the father of Kunta Kinte. He was also in Fun with Dick and Jane. He played a deputy chief in The Incredible Hulk, The Boss's Wife, Bulletproof, Above the Law, Star Trek: The Next Generation. He played the police commissioner in New Jack City. And his last film was Mom and Dad Save the World in 1992. He died of leukemia on October 9th, 1991 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His last film role was as General Afir in Mom and Dad Save the World. He died shortly after completing his scenes, and the film, released a year after his death, is dedicated to his memory. Rasulallah's death was 2 days before actor Red Fox, who died of a heart attack and with whom he guest starred on Sanford and Son. In the episode, he solicited funds for heart attack prevention and awareness. Yeah, but I think aside from Blacula, I think the other big thing he's known for is Roots, where he played Kunta Kinte's father. And she just ran into the count. Just ran into the count. Now, okay, so Luva, Vonetta McGee, she played Luva in the beginning of the film, in the prologue, if you remember. And she also plays Tina in 1972 Los Angeles. So Vonetta McGee, that's her name. That's the actress's name. She debuted in the spaghetti western The Great Silence, went on to appear in other blaxploitation films as Hammer, Melinda, Shaft in Africa, which is the third film in the Shaft series. And for some weird reason, Criterion did not include Shaft in Africa on this Criterion Shaft set. They only included the original as well as Shaft's big score. But for some reason, they didn't put Shaft in Africa on here. I don't really know why. They could have easily threw it on there, but that's I have no idea. But she was also in Detroit 9000, as well as 1974's Thomasine and Bushrod, alongside her then boyfriend Max Julian. In 1975, she was Clint Eastwood's co-star in The Eager Sanction. She was a regular on the 1987 situation comedy Bustin' Loose, starring as Mimi Shaw for its only season. She landed her first role in 1968 when she performed alongside Jean-Loup Trintignant and Klaus Kinski in Sergio Corbucci's spaghetti western The Great Silence. Made her first released film appearance that same year as the eponymous character in the Italian comedy Faustina, which was released before the former film. She later became well known for her parts in Melinda and Hammer, which are both blaxploitation films that came out the same year in 1972. Melinda had Calvin Lockhart and Rosalind Cash, and Hammer had Fred Williamson and Bernie Hamilton, who we will also see later on in Scream, Blacula Scream. In the action thriller Shaft in Africa, McGee took the role of Learn, the daughter of an emir who teaches John Shaft Ethiopian geography. Oh, wow. Earlier that year, she had appeared in a supporting role as an occult priestess in the Norless tapes. In 1974, McGee appeared as Thomasine alongside Max Julian as Bushrod in Thomasine and Bushrod, which was intended as a counterpart to the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde. The next year, she starred alongside Clint Eastwood in the action thriller The Eager Sanction, appeared in the TV series Starsky and Hutch named Black and Blue in 1979, and she appeared as Marlene, the high-energy lot manager in the 1984 cult classic Repo Man, written and directed by Alex Cox, starring Emilio Estevez. That's actually one of the great cult films of the 1980s. And sadly, she is no longer with us as well. She passed away in 2010 at the age of 65. And in the role of Michelle Williams, we have here Denise Nicholas. Now, she is still with us. She was born in 1944, and she's an American actress, author, and social activist, known primarily for her roles as a high school guidance counselor, Liz McIntyre, on the series Room 222, and Councilwoman Harriet DeLong on In the Heat of the Night. Prior to her acting career, Nicholas was involved in the civil rights movement during the 1960s. And Blacula was her very first film. Yep, her very first film. After this, she did Let's Do It Again and A Piece of the Action. And she did a lot of stuff for television, including The Paper Chase, The Love Boat, Benson, Different Strokes, One Day at a Time, and Living Single was one of the last things that she did. And she's also done a lot of theater work. She wrote the song Can We Pretend, which her then husband Bill Withers recorded on his 1974 album Justments, and she later appeared as Harriet DeLong on In the Heat of the Night. Her first novel, Freshwater Road, published by Agate Publishing in August 2005, it received a starred review in Publishers Weekly and was selected as one of the best books of 2005 by the Washington Post, the Detroit Free Press, the Atlanta Journal Constitution, Newsday, and the Chicago Tribune. The novel won the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Award for Debut Fiction in 2006, as well as the American Library Association's Black Caucus Award for Debut Fiction the same year. Freshwater Road was reprinted by Pocket Books. Brown University commissioned Nicholas to write a staged adaptation of Freshwater Road, which was presented in May 2008. Nicholas is currently completing her memoir, and it will be published by Agate Publishing in 2023. How about that? That is amazing. So if you love Denise Nicholas in this movie, be sure to pick up her memoir, which is coming out next year. And here we have the great Elisha Cook Jr., although, as we noted in the opening credits, he is just given credit as Elisha Cook. And he was born in 1903. He was a character actor, mostly known for his work in film noir. According to Bill Georgia Garris of They Shoot Pictures, Don't They?, Cook appeared in a total of 21 film noirs, more than any other actor or actress. He played cheerful, brainy collegiates until he was cast against type as the bug-eyed, baby-faced, psychopathic killer Wilmer in the 1941 version of The Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart. He went on to play deceptively mild-mannered villains. His acting career spanned more than 60 years, with roles in productions including The Big Sleep, Shane, The Killing, House on the Haunted Hill, and Rosemary's Baby. And we really only see him in a few scenes as the morgue attendant in the first Blacula, and he has a great death scene. He has a great death scene that is coming up. Just to let everybody know, we just passed the 30-minute mark, 30-minute, 30-second mark of Blacula. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining me tonight for this double feature. Now, we'll get back to Elisha Cook a little bit later, but I should mention that the cab driver who Blacula bites, and she's now lying in the morgue, and she is going to basically get up and attack Elisha Cook Jr. a little bit later, which is a magnificent attack scene. Magnificent. But her name is Ketty Lester. She is still with us. She is 88 years old. I mean, that's the thing. She mostly plays a dead woman in this movie. And she's an American singer and actress known for her 1961 hit single, Love Letters, which reached the top 5 of the charts in the US and the UK. And she is also known for her role as Hester Sue Terhune on the American television series Little House on the Prairie. Yes, absolutely. In 1962, she toured the UK as support act on the Everly Brothers tour. The follow-up, a version of George and Ira Gershwin's But Not For Me from the musical Girl Crazy, reached number 41 in the US pop charts and number 45 in the UK. And her album Love Letters contained the tracks You Can't Lie to a Liar and a cover of Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land, both of which were issued as singles, and was nominated for a Grammy in the Best Female Pop Vocal Performance category. But unfortunately, she's on a slab for pretty much most of this movie. We don't hear her sing any of that. She is on the slab for pretty much the entire movie. Now, the actor who plays Lieutenant Jack Peters, he's actually, given the last credit in the opening credits before we start the movie. He's played by a Canadian actor and writer and director and singer. Again, a lot of singers in this movie. Gordon Pinsent, still with us, 92 years old, born in 1930. He is known for his roles in numerous productions, including Away from Her, The Rowdy Men, John and the Missus, A Gift to Last, Due South, The Red Green Show, Quentin Durgan's MP, and he was the voice of Babar the Elephant in television and film from 1989 to 2015. And in fact, he did give the voice of Babar in 1989's Babar the movie. I remember that movie very, very vividly. But he also he started out in movies in the 1960s. He was in the Thomas Crown Affair with Steve McQueen, as well as Colossus the Forbidden Project and The Rowdy Men and Chandler before appearing in Blacula as the lieutenant. I mean, I love those froze, man. I can't get over the froze. They're awesome. Okay, now. Okay, so who do we have on screen right now as the pop and soul trio known as the Hughes Corporation? Yeah, they formed in Santa Monica, California in 1969, and they are best known for their 1974 single Rock the Boat, which sold over 2 million copies. Uh, Songwriter Wally Holmes founded the group with his friend Bernard St. Clair Lee. Female singer H. Ann Kelly was found at a talent show in LA. As a result of notices placed in Southern California record stores, Carl Russell turned up, and they all recorded a single, Good Footin' and We're Keeping Our Business, that was released by Liberty Records in 1970. Sadly, it did not chart. Still with Carl Russell, the group's first big break came in 1972 when they were invited to appear in the blaxploitation film Blacula. They were also asked to record 3 songs for the film's soundtrack. There He Is Again, What the World Knows, and I'm Gonna Catch You. After their participation in the Blacula project, Carl Russell was replaced by Fleming Williams, and the group signed with RCA Records. Their second single for the label, Freedom for the Stallion, from the album of the same name, became a moderate hit and reaching number 63 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. This third single from the album, Rock the Boat, became a number 1 hit on the Billboard chart and the group's signature song. The bass player on the session for Rock the Boat was Wilton Felder, not James Jamerson, as previously reported. Rock the Boat was written by Holmes, who also wrote the Blacula songs, and was released in the U.S. in February of 1974 and in UK of July of that same year. It went on to number 1 for 1 week in the United States and number 6 for 2 weeks in the UK, staying for 18 weeks in the US chart with a gold disc awarded by the RIAA on June 24th, 1974. The track sold well over 2 million copies. The song is considered one of the earliest disco songs. Some authorities proclaim it to be the first disco song to hit number 1, while others give that distinction to Love's Theme by the Love Unlimited Orchestra, a chart topper from earlier in 1974. After the success of Rock the Boat, the Hughes Corporation, other charted singles on the Billboard Hot 100 included Rock and Soul, 1974, Love Corporation, 75, and I Caught Your Act in 77. The group was unable to duplicate the success of their earlier hits and disbanded sometime in around 1980. Whereas some sources claim the year of disbanding as early as 78, archive footage of a television special for the Chilean TV in 1979 promoting their performance at the Viña del Mar International Song Festival proves the opposite. Furthermore, in 1980, the Hughes Corporation released one last single in the US and a 6th album in at least New Zealand, Argentina, and South Africa. With the renewed popularity of disco music in the 1990s, the group reunited for tour dates and special events, including the PBS special Get Down Tonight, the Disco Explosion. Mhm. So yeah, they had six albums, three under RCA Victor and two under Warner Brothers. And like I said, their biggest hits were here in the early 1970s. Here we have our four main characters on screen at the same time, and eventually this becomes a story on, they got to find his coffin. They got to find the man's coffin. I actually do prefer the sequel. I mean, for many other reasons that we'll get to when we get there. But yeah, I mean, this is just basically eventually in the second half of the movie, it's all about them trying to find Blacula's coffin. Here's the Hughes Corporation again, playing me for a fool. What do you mean gone? Hmm. And and granted, in a lot of vampire stories, there's the typical thing where, I mean, the characters they don't believe in vampires, and then there's evidence to the contrary. It's like, oh my god, yeah. Um, if you see two holes in a neck, that's an obvious sign that that there are vampires lurking around. But believe it or not, there actually are a few real life vampires, people that actually imitate vampires and actually do, kill people to drink their blood and shit. Uh, there are people out there that actually take this stuff to extremes, but the rest of us, I think, prefer to think of them as fictional characters in like Anne Rice novels and everything. Now here we have now this guy right here. He has nothing to do with the story whatsoever, and yet he's just so charming. He's actually one of my favorite things in the movie, even though he's barely in it. And he's just he's a character. His character name is Skillet. Yeah, his character name is Skillet, and he's played by G2 Kumbaka. G2 Kumbuka. G2 Kumbuka. Yeah, that's his name. Okay. And he's no longer with us. He passed away at the age of 77 on the 4th of July in 2017. He was an American actor, best remembered as Torque in the hit television series A Man Called Sloan, together with Robert Conrad and Dan O'Herlihy. And I believe, yeah. In 2011, Kumbaka published his autobiography, A Giant to Remember, the Black Actor in Hollywood. He has a son and a granddaughter. Let's see. He appeared in such television productions as the Roots miniseries, Daniel Boone, Daniel Boone, Knots Landing, The A-Team, The Dukes of Hazzard, Murder, She Wrote, Walker, Texas Ranger, CSI Crime Scene Investigation, Sanford and Son, Hunter, and In the Heat of the Night. And he was actually in another movie I did an audio commentary on earlier this year called Doing Time, which is part of my Lad Company series. And tomorrow we're going to be doing 5 Days, One Summer as the next Lad Company commentary. Every Saturday night, every Sunday until the end of the year, we're going to be doing all the Lad Company commentaries, just to let everybody know. But he was also the same year as 1972. He was also in Up the Sandbox with Barbara Streisand of all people. He was also in Trader Horn, Mandingo, Dr. Black, Mr. Hyde. Here again, another variation on like Blacula and Blackenstein and that type of thing. They did make a Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. He was also in Bound for Glory, the Hal Ashby film, played Slim Sned Eager, a hobo on a train. He was also in Fun with Dick and Jane as a guard. Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks, he played an alley pimp. Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor. Outrageous Fortune, he played a cab driver. I do remember him from that. I definitely do remember him from that. That was very funny. That was very funny. And that's the thing about these two movies is that the characters when they drink, they tend to drink Coors Light. No, seriously, in both movies, there are characters that drink Coors Light. It's like it's what they had on the set, I guess. And just to let everybody know, we just hit the 44-minute mark. We are 44 minutes into William Crain's Blacula. But we'll see G2 a little bit later. We'll see him again, and I think in one more scene. Okay. So, Blacula, as far as the production is concerned, many members of the cast and crew of Blacula had worked in television. Director William Crain had directed episodes of the Mod Squad. William H. Marshall's Mamuwalde was the black vampire to appear in the film. Marshall had previously worked in stage productions and in episodes of Man from Uncle, Bonanza, Star Trek, and Mannix. Thalmas Rasulala plays Dr. Gordon Thomas, best known for episodes of Twilight Zone, Perry Mason, and Rawhide. Blacula was in production between late January and late March of 1972. While Blacula was in its production stages, William Marshall worked with the film's producers to make sure his character had some dignity. His character name was changed from Andrew Brown to Mamuwalde, and his character received a background story about being an African prince who had succumbed to vampirism. Blacula was shot on location in LA, with some scenes shot in Watts, and the final scenes taken at the Hyperion Outfall Treatment Plant in Playa del Rey. The music for Blacula is unlike that of most horror films, as it features a funk soundtrack as opposed to haunting classical music. The film's soundtrack features a score by Gene Page and contributions by the Hughes Corporation and 21st Century Limited. Blacula opened in Washington, Dallas, Seattle, and Oklahoma City on July 26, 1972, and in Chicago 2 days later. Prior to its release, American International Pictures Marketing Department wanted to ensure that Black audiences would be interested in Blacula. Some posters for the film included references to slavery. American International Pictures also had special promotional showings at 2 New York theaters. Anyone wearing a flowing cape would receive free admission. Blacula was popular in America, debuting at number 24 on Variety's list of top films. It eventually grossed over $1 million, making it one of the highest grossing films of 72. I would have to double check that. That sounds a little bit dubious. Scream Factory released the film on Blu-ray as a double feature with Scream, Blacula, Scream in 2015. It received only mixed reviews at the time when it came out. Variety gave the film a positive review, praising the screenplay, the music, and acting by William Marshall. Chicago Reader praised the film, writing that it would leave its audience more satisfied than any other post-Lugosi efforts. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune awarded 3 stars out of 4, calling it well-made and quite frightening. Oh. A review from Roger Greenspun in the New York Times was negative, stating that anyone who goes to a vampire movie expecting sense is in serious trouble, and Blacula offers less sense than most. In Films and Filming, a reviewer referred to the film as totally unconvincing on every level. The Monthly Film Bulletin described the film as a disappointing model for what promised to be an exciting new genre, the black horror film, and that apart from the introductory scene, the film conspicuously fails to pick up on any of its themes more interesting possibilities, cinematic or philosophical. Among more recent reviews, Kim Newman of Empire gave the film 2 stars out of 5, finding the film to be formulaic and full of holes. Time Out gave the film a negative review, saying that it remains a lifeless reworking of Heroes versus Vampires with soul music and a couple of good gags. Film 4 awarded the film 3.5 stars out of 5, calling it essential blaxploitation viewing. All Movie gave the movie 2.5 out of 5, noting that Blacula is better than its campy title might lead one to believe, and the film suffers from the occasional bit of awkward humor. The bits with the 2 homosexual interior decorators are the most squirm-inducing. Yes, but Joan Torres and Raymond Koenig's script keeps things moving at a fast clip and generates some genuine chills. The Dissolve gave the film 2.5 stars, stating that, quote, the placement of an old-fashioned Bela Lugosi-type Dracula, albeit much sweatier. Yeah, William Marshall sweats a lot in this movie, especially when he kisses his co-stars. He tends to sweat so much. In fact, I think even at the end of this scene right here, he's like almost covered in sweat. It's amazing. Yeah, so the placement of an old-fashioned Bela Lugosi-type Dracula in a modern black neighborhood is a great idea, but the amateurish production leaves Marshall as stranded in the film as his Mama Walde is stranded in the Times. Rotten Tomatoes overall approval rating is 48%. But the box office success of Blacula sparked a wave of black-themed horror films. It's also the sequel also has William Marshall in the title role, along with actress Pam Grier. We're going to get to that a little bit later at 11:30. American International was also planning a follow-up entitled Blackenstein, but chose to focus on Scream Blacula Scream instead. But Blackenstein was eventually produced by Exclusive International Pictures, and from all accounts is terrible. All accounts. I mean, all they have is a woman with massive boobs on the poster. We don't see her nipples. We see pretty much all her boobs, but not her nipples. And she's just screaming like this. That's the cover of Blackenstein for you. On June 17th, 2021, it was announced that a reboot of Blacula was in development. The film will be a co-production between MGM, Bronze Studios, and Hidden Empire Film Group, with Roxanne Avent producing and Dion Taylor and Michael Ranum co-writing. Taylor will also direct the film. So Dion Taylor, he also directed Fear, which comes out this year, Black and Blue, The Intruder, Meet the Blacks, Supremacy, Chain Letter, Supremacy, Fatale, and The House. The House Next Door, Meet the Blacks 2, and All-Star Weekend. So, and he also directed the Jamie Foxx music video In Love by Now. So he's going to be directing the Blacula reboot. And all I can say is, I mean, if they want to get I think the perfect actor to get Blacula, on my friend of mine's podcast, or on his channel, Lauren Dixon, Visited by Voices, I actually asked one of his guests, who could you see in a Blacula reboot? And she said who I think I was pretty much thinking at the same time, which was Donald Glover, who played the young Lando Calrissian in Solo, a Star Wars story. See, look at all the sweat. Blacula sweats a lot in this movie. It's amazing. It's really amazing. But yeah, I would vote for Donald Glover. I'm going to actually pitch to those guys, hey, you should get Donald Glover to play Blacula. I think he would be terrific. Doing some old-fashioned grave robbing here, or grave pillaging rather. Now, I got to admit on this rewatch that this part made me jump. I had completely forgotten about this. And so this time, this actually got to me. But yeah, Blankenstein was pretty bad. Had some okay songs in it at a couple points. Needless to say, I will probably not be doing Blackenstein for a 50th anniversary commentary in a couple of years. I probably will not. Like I said, Blacula and Scream, those two films I'm more than comfortable with keeping, but I will pass on Blankenstein. Oh! Yeah, I forgot that came out. Oh! Smacked him with the shovel. Well, of course, as in a lot of traditional vampire stories, you have to put a stake through the heart. And that's what he does right here. Yeah. Pound that stake in. And of course, his wife is freaking out here. We just put him out of his misery. What's the problem? What's the problem here? Mm. Oh, yeah. Trader Joe's limeade. Absolutely love it. So yeah, we'll see what that reboot is like when we get to it. But I vote for Donald Glover. I definitely vote for Donald Glover for that one. Now, the music, as we said before, was done by a gentleman by the name of Gene Page. He was a conductor, composer, arranger, and record producer, most active from the mid-60s through the mid-1980s. His sound can be heard in the arrangements he did for Jefferson's Starship, the Righteous Brothers, the Supremes, the Four Tops, Barbra Streisand, Johnny Mathis, Donnie Lauren, Nancy Wilson, Martha and the Vandellas, Sherry, Barry White, the Love Limited Orchestra, Dionne Warwick, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, George Benson, the Jackson Five, Roberta Flack, Elton John, Leo Sayer, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, Frankie Valli, Helen Reddy, and Lionel Richie, among many other notable acts in popular music. In addition, he released 4 solo albums and scored various motion picture soundtracks that include Brewster McCloud, directed by Robert Altman, and Fun with Dick and Jane. In 1972, he was hired to score Blacula. He is the brother of musician and songwriter and producer Billy Page. He died in 1998 after a long-term illness of severe alcoholism at the age of 58. Yep. And the cinematographer on Blacula is a man by the name of John M. Stevens. He was born in 1932, passed away in 2015 at the age of 82. He was noted for his innovative work on the 1966 film Grand Prix, for which he pioneered the use of a number of camera mounts and developed the first remotely operated pan and tilt head camera. For his latter invention, he received a Technical Achievement Award from the Society of Operating Cameramen in 1994. Excuse me. He learned how to use a camera when he served in the United States Navy. Yes! In the 1950s. Working as a photographer in Sun Valley, Idaho, he entered film work as an assistant cameraman, stills photographer on Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe, and South Pacific, which I happen to own on Blu-ray. As a cinematographer, he was known for his work on such films as Billy Jack, Blacula, Martin Scorsese's Boxcar Bertha, which we did a commentary on earlier this year, and William Friedkin's Sorcerer, huge cult film. He also shot the memorable bicycle chase for Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial, though he did not receive on-screen credit for his work. He was also the second unit director and cameraman for John Landis's comedy Three Amigos and the aerial photographer for Phil Alden Robinson's acclaimed Field of Dreams. That's one of my favorite baseball movies. From the late 1980s onward, he more prominently worked as a second unit director of photography, most notably on Martin Brest's Midnight Run, which I also have, and James Cameron's Titanic, which I do not have. His other film credits as a camera operator include The Fog, directed by John Carpenter, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Ski Party, and Seconds, and Ice Station Zebra. As a cinematography, he did Sorcerer, Ski Patrol, and Billy Jack and Money O'Hare. And as a second unit director of photography, he did Midnight Run, Loose Cannons, Major League 2, Conspiracy Theory, 6 Days, 7 Nights with Harrison Ford. And finally, his last credit was for Bandits, starring Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, and Kate Blanchett, which came out in 2001. And here Elisha Cook Jr. gets attacked in a pretty spectacular scene when he gets attacked by Ketty Lester. It's a great attack scene. Now, this is actually a very sensual moment, particularly for Black audiences at the time. That very rarely did we get to see Black couples make love on screen, and this is here again, this was one of the first that actually dared go in that direction. Now, to talk a little bit more about William Marshall, his career on screen began in the 1952 film Lydia Bailey as a Haitian leader. He followed that with a prominent role as Glycon, comrade and fellow gladiator to Victor Mature in the 1954 film Demetrius and the Gladiators. His demeanor, voice, and stature gave him a wide range, though he was ill-suited for the subservient roles that many Black actors of his generation were most frequently offered. He was the leader of the Mau Mau Uprising in Something of Value, 1957. Attorney General Edward Brooke in the 1968 film The Boston Strangler, which is actually a pretty good thriller. It's very dated, and of course, nowadays a lot of people believe that there were actually more than one Boston Strangler, that there were actually multiple Boston Stranglers, where some of the later ones would just read about them in the paper and then just take that blueprint and go out and just kill more women in the same fashion. But the 1968 film with Tony Curtis is still worth watching. And William Marshall probably received the most notice for Blacula and Scream, Blacula, Scream. In the early 1950s, he starred briefly in Harlem Detective, a series about Black police officers. The show was canceled when Marshall was named as a communist in the anti-communist newsletter Counterattack. Despite blacklisting because of his supposed communist connections, Marshall continued to appear in both television and films. He appeared on the British spy series Danger Man in episodes titled Deadline and The Galloping Major. Marshall played the role of traveling opera singer Thomas Bowers on the 1964 Bonanza episode Enter Thomas Bowers, and that same year he appeared with actor Ivan Dixon as the leader of a newly independent African nation and as a thrush agent in the first season episode of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., entitled The Vulcan Affair. Also on the 1964 Rawhide episode Incident at Seven Fingers, where he played a Buffalo Soldier. In 1968, he appeared as Dr. Richard Daystrom in the Star Trek episode The Ultimate Computer. In 1969, he had a special guest appearance, as the character Amalek in an episode of Wild Wild West entitled Night of the Egyptian Queen. He reprised his Othello persona in 1979 on Steve Allen's Meeting of the Minds. He won 2 local Emmy Awards for producing and performing in a PBS production as Adam Early in the Morning, a theater piece originally performed on stage. He also was featured in an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour titled The Jar with actors Pat Buttram and George Lindsay. He had played the king of cartoons on Pee-wee's Playhouse, replacing actor Gilbert Lewis during the 1980s. He also guest starred on Benson as Mr. Reaper in the season 7, episode 4, episode The Strangler, or The Stranger, excuse me. In addition to acting and producing, Marshall taught acting at various universities, including the University of California, Irvine, and the Mufandi Institute, an African American arts and music institution in the Watts section of LA. He did similar work at Chicago's ETA Creative Arts Foundation, which in 1992 named Marshall one of its epic men of the 20th century. For 42 years, Marshall was the partner of Sylvia Gusan Jericho, former wife of Blacklist screenwriter Paul Jericho. And Marshall died on June 11th, 2003, from complications arising from Alzheimer's and diabetes. He was survived by his sons, Tariq, Malcolm, and Claude Marshall, and daughter Gina Loring. Eulogists at his funeral included Sidney Poitier, Ivan Dixon, Paul Winfield, and Marla Gibbs. And we'll be talking about Paul Winfield a little bit later this year, as we'll be doing commentaries for both Martin Ritt's Sounder in December, as well as Mike's Murder in November. So look out for those films, which both feature Paul Winfield. And we just passed the 1 hour and 4 minute mark. The 1 hour and 4 minute mark. I like this scene where he basically just drills into William Marshall about, the case and how he suspects, it's a vampire's. Like, have you ever been interested in the occult? Oh, it's quite fascinating. It's, it's somewhat fascinating. I forget the exact line, but it's gold. It's just gold. Still, they're organizing a search. Oh, a search. Oh, yeah. Finding his resting place, a vampire's coffin. So that's the thing, is that the entire last 28 minutes of the movie is all about finding Blacula's coffin. But of course, we have to say hi to Skillet again. Skillet is back on screen just to be Skillet. And right before Blacula leaves, he's like, "Hey man, let me buy that old cape from you, man. Buy the cape from you." Like, Blacula is not selling his cape. He is a strange dude. Yeah, I remember him from Outrageous Fortune now, where he played that cab driver, where he takes Bette Midler and Shelley Long into this area, so that because they're looking for this guy. And he offers him, the cab driver, money and everything. And they're going through this neighborhood, and Shelley Long is looking around. "I don't like this. Do you realize we haven't seen one white person here yet?" And Bette Midler's like, "Oh, there's one. Oh, they got him." Outrageous Fortune. That is a classic 80s comedy. Classic 80s comedy. If you ever get a chance to check that out. And of course, here he discovers all the damage inside the dark room. All that good stuff. I think we've covered all the actors. I think we've pretty much covered all the actors and pretty much most everything that I can think of when it comes to Blacula. So, and we got about 26 minutes left here to go. We're pretty much going to be starting Scream Blacula Scream only a minute after this movie. I mean, we're literally just going to jump on over, and I'm going to be doing that on Amazon. I'm not sure where you all will be watching the movies at, but yeah, I'll be definitely. And we need to delete some comments here. Get rid of all those. Blacula back in her arms. Thank you, Chrysler. Well, actually, let's jump over here. See, there's a few other things I could probably squeeze out. Let's see. William Marshall's Mama Walde was the first black vampire to appear in films. Yep. Film takes place in 1780 and 1972. Yes, indeed. Yeah. That's all they have on Blacula here. When originally released theatrically in the United Kingdom, the BBFC made cuts to secure an X rating. All cuts were waived in 1998 when the film was granted a 15 certificate for home video. I was going to say, this movie is not very bloody. There's not really a lot to complain about when it comes to this film. I mean, I'd probably let teenagers watch it. Why not? Why not? you know, in a coffin. Yeah, they're on the hunt for the coffin. It's like I said, the last third act, it's like, okay, yeah, they have to get the coffin. They have to get to the coffin. Mm. But meantime, enjoy the clothes, enjoy the furrows. Yeah. Mm. But it would have been interesting if there was a third Blacula movie. What it would have done. I mean, both this and Doctor Fives, they're both operating under the same excuse that, well, it doesn't matter how they got resurrected. The point is, they will get resurrected for another film. See, now this moment right here, they use the F word several times throughout the movie, and yes, it doesn't age the film very well. It really doesn't. But unfortunately, it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Just to let everybody know, I did not end up buying these movies on the the Scream Factory Blu-ray. You can get them both at a good price. They do not have any bonus features on them. That's why I decided to pass on actually buying them. Hmm. But if you want to get them both on Blu-ray, you could probably. Oh, not currently available. You might have to go to eBay then. But you can get them both together on a Shout Factory Blu-ray double whammy. Oh, my bad. Audio commentary with author, film historian, filmmaker David F. Walker. Reflections on Blaxploitation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actors and directors speak. And then there's also interview with Richard Lawson, who's in Scream Blacula Scream. That's right. I didn't get this because it's out of print, unfortunately. It's unfortunately out of print. But I do like Richard Lawson in Scream Blacula Scream, so I would be at the very least interested in hearing what he has to say. And yes, you'll know who Richard Lawson is when you see him. Trust me. Going in for the coffin. We're just coming up on 1 hour and 12 minutes. 1 hour and 12 minutes to Blacula. We have approximately 21 minutes left to go. Yeah. Oh no. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. You're snooping somewhere you shouldn't be snooping in. Yep. On April 12th of 2022, over at Film International or filmint.nu, there was a article posted by Matthew Sorrento about Blacula's 50th anniversary, the original cinematic vampire. In the year of the film anniversary, where is Blacula's? The vampire genre, as with zombies and other supernatural elements, is cyclical, tending to make a resurgence during a pandemic. From the AMC adaptation of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, starring Game of Thrones actor Jacob Anderson, to Marvel's Morbius, Jared Leto, and controversial casting, to Reginald the Vampire, Jacob Batalon's Spider-Man No Way Home, the vampire is again making a comeback, and the timing could not be better. Popularized by John Polidori's Vampire in 1819 and Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula, the character of the marginalized other is much needed at this moment of worldwide strife. Casting for the upcoming television series reflects viewers' needs to have an update to the more traditional white male vampire. Challenging this vampire characterization has already been done in the 1970s with William Crain's Blacula, a black exploitation film facing an unrecognized 50th anniversary this year. In the year of big cinematic anniversaries, Nosferatu, The Hunger Games, and The Godfather, an investigation of Blacula's neglect is necessary. But what about the first cinematic black vampire? Is the film merely a product of its time and should be relegated to the past, or does it continue to have merit for the 21st century audience? To summarize, Blacula revolves around the transformation of the Prince Mamuwalde character, expertly played by William Marshall, into Blacula the vampire. In 1780, Prince Mamuwalde and his wife Luva go to Dracula's Transylvanian castle, tell him he must cease the transatlantic slave trade. While horror films are not often known for their in-depth character development, Marshall asked Mamuwalde Blacula could have more of a backstory. It is this characterization and superb acting by Marshall that makes the film meaningful full today, despite its many problems. Yes, 100%. Yeah, William Marshall makes this movie very much meaningful today, even though it does have problems. Upon Prince Mamuwalde's demand that the slave trade be stopped, Dracula, a symbol of white supremacy, makes lurid advances towards Luva, the sexualization of the enslaved black woman, and has his fiends attack the duo. Both Mamuwalde and Luva retake to the dungeon, where Prince Mamuwalde is forced into a coffin and renamed Blacula by Dracula. This renaming is emblematic of the enslaved person's identity being stripped from them and of forcing a new name on them when landing in the enslaver's colony. After his coffin is purchased by Billy and Bobby, a moment meant to channel Blacula's enslavement and transported to the port of LA on a slave ship, Blacula awakes disoriented, lacking connections to his old life of freedom. Marshall brilliantly shows the struggle between both identities, that of Prince Mamuwalde and the newly enslaved Blacula. In the end, after he attempts to recreate his old life with Tina, also Luva, played by Vonetta McGee, he fails. He lumbers to the rooftop of a warehouse to commit suicide in the LA sunlight. The maggots on his cloak, the only proof of his existence. Blacula was released as part of the original wave of blaxploitation films in the early 70s, from action films like Foxy Brown and Shaft to adaptations of horror. Blaxploitation was an attempt by black filmmakers to place black actors directly in front of the camera rather than in background playing supporting characters. On the one hand, the plan was successful, enabling black actors and filmmakers to take control of the productions. On the other hand, the films were littered with misogynistic portrayals of women, homophobic remarks, and the stereotypical characterizations of black people. The use of the N-word, the homophobic F-word, and the misogynistic B-word throughout Blacula contribute to the reasons as to why Blacula's anniversary may be all but forgotten. Billy and Bobby, the interracial gay couple that purchased the contents of Dracula's castle, including Blacula's coffin, are antique dealers and symbolically are the first victims to Blacula's thirst for blood. The message sent by the deaths of the gay couple is troubling, to say the least. As the viewer ventures further in the plot, the other vampires are primarily women. Juanita Jones, the taxi driver that accidentally hits Blacula with her car. Nancy, the club photographer who takes Blacula's photo. He's a vampire, therefore he has no image. And Tina, the born-again Luva, who agreed to become a vampire because she's in a trance, which is symbolic of rape. The characters selected for a living death are controversial and maybe problematic for audiences. Because when blaxploitation began, there was not a lot of money. Blacula looks low budget, and the handheld camera's work is typical of the genre, made certain scenes difficult for the viewer to watch. The fight scenes are not well choreographed, and the makeup is cheaply done. The vampires are green. The difference between Prince Mamuwalde and Blacula is indicated by Blacula's bushy eyebrows, fangs, and pork chop sideburns. The costuming of the prince in a suit and cape, however, is befitting a prince. It is this prince and his anti-racist message that should be honored on Blacula's 50th anniversary. Despite its many offensive flaws, Blacula is an important addition to the American cinematic canon. And that was written by Melanie A. Murata, a lecturer in the Department of English and Language Arts at Morgan State University. She focuses on American literature, in particular African American, young adult literature, the American West, science fiction, and eco-criticism. She has a monograph, African American Adolescent Female Heroes, the 21st Century Young Adult Neo-Slave Narrative. Awesome. So, yeah. We did have somebody celebrate the 50th anniversary. Yes, Brian, of course. It was the 70s. As I said it before and I didn't want to repeat it. It's a different time. It's completely a different time. We're so PC these days. Blacula! And like I said, I'm very much serious. I want to see Donald Glover play Blacula in a reboot. I think that he would be a perfect Blacula in a reboot. Oh, the British Film Institute in Dreams Are Monsters. Apparently they had a 50th anniversary screening. Oh, yeah. In Dreams Are Monsters, Blacula's 50th anniversary plus live Q&A. It's going to take place on Saturday, November 19th at the British Film Institute. Wales International Horror Festival, Abertoir, and Bristol Black Horror Club will be presenting a special 50th anniversary screening of Blacula, followed by a live panel discussion from the festival with director himself, William Crain, participating. Audiences across the country will also be able to take part by asking questions via their mobile phone. Interesting. Screening is a part of In Dreams Are Monsters season of horror films, UK wide film season, supported by the National Lottery and BFI Film Audience Network. In Dreams Are Monsters.co.uk. So that's going to be on November 19th. For all those who are living in England, there you go. Director William Crain will be there for a live Q&A for the film's 50th anniversary. That's absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And it's also playing tomorrow night, Sunday night, at the Frank Banco Ale House Cinema in Bethlehem. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Yep, Blacula will also be playing for a 50th anniversary screening there tomorrow night. I'm with you, Brian. I'm actually with you. I prefer the sequel Scream, Blacula, Scream, even though they're both pretty much on the same level, like the Dr. Fives movies. Yeah. At the website horrorgeeklife.com, Kurt Marquardt on August 29th, 2022, published an article called Blacula 50 Years Later, His Bite Was Out of Sight. Do you remember the first time you heard about Blacula? I do. It was sometime in the 70s. I was not even 10 years old, and a friend asked me if I had seen it. He was for sure pulling my leg. At its most innocent, it sounded like another white kid's idea of a clever joke. There was no IMDb or Google for him to prove it, and we left it at that. Years later, I would hear the term blaxploitation. Now it's time to celebrate the 50th anniversary of this diamond in the rough. For this piece, I won't debate blaxploitation films, but discuss Blacula on its merits as a retro horror. The first requirement to enjoying Blacula is an appreciation for the art form as presented by it in its time. William Crain had little experience as a director, only having sat behind the camera on an episode of Mod Squad before taking Blacula. He'd go on to direct episodes of SWAT, Starsky and Hutch, and Dukes of Hazzard. He mingled with some of the most iconic titles of the 70s, IPs that would resonate for decades, character sets that were eternal. He had his hand in a few of the entertainment productions that would become retro franchises, rebooted for new audiences decades later. He knew where the gold was. It is a surprise that writers Joan Torres and Raymond Koenig have no writing credits outside of a Blacula and its superior follow-up, Scream Blacula Scream. I guess genius has its limitations. Though the dialogue is often too formal and contrived to be taken seriously, the concept of who Blacula is has the bones for a greater iteration. He is Prince Mamuwalde, an African diplomat on a mission to stop the slave trade. It's a slow-paced film, like many movies of the time. The art form rarely considered how camera angles and blocking affect tone and mood. Being a low-budget film, there were probably not many takes to choose from, so line delivery often feels like a student film. The hook still remains, though. Elisha Cook's hook. Yeah, there's a voyeuristic feel to watching the characters interact. From the get-go, we want to see where Blacula goes and how he gets there. Whether it's Dr. Thomas with the Scientific Investigation Division casually discussing his supernatural theories with police, or Tina's unexplained reversal of fear toward Mamuwalde in a nightclub after she thought he was stalking her. Suspension of disbelief applies itself like a peripheral wrecking ball. Motivations fall apart all around the characters off camera constantly. You might be able to blame the strange pacing on editing and inexperience in the director's chair, or you might want to blame the unnatural dialogue. Still, Blacula's hypnotic charm doesn't allow you to look away. His powers of enchantment are more clearly illustrated in Scream Blacula Scream, co-starring the immortal Pam Grier, so you are left wondering why anyone does anything. The only character who is believable in his assessment of others is Skillet, the most over-the-top blaxploitation representative in the entire film. This swanky cat is the only one who admits aloud that Mamuwalde is, quote, one strange dude. Jedi mind tricks don't work on him. Ironically, the character who is most a caricature is the most real among the cast. Still, you can't look away. Payoff and closure come after a low-key climax complete with electrocution, multiple fatal falls, and a fast-paced walk chase. Gordon Thomas pursues his suspicions as Blacula finally acts like a proper anti-hero. After being denied the love of his undead wife, he's cold and determined to end his pain. Knowing the sun has arisen, he exits a water treatment plant through a staircase to the roof with a comedic bit of foreshadowing. You can't miss the no smoking sign. He passes under just before he relinquishes his body to our life giver, the sun. Just when he gets going, we've lost him. No worries, though. Blacula returns in the sequel with a bit of voodoo and brings the action this time. The best feature of Blacula is the funk and soul-based soundtrack, although it's entirely the wrong music to take a vampire seriously. But this kind of music will never be right for horror unless it's a parody. While watching Blacula 50 years later, I hoped Mamuwalde might be resurrected with modern talent, but I fear it would be treated the same way so many 70s movies and television series are treated, as a farce. The skeleton is there for a serious franchise. However, Dion Taylor, director of horror comedy The House Next Door, Meet the Blacks 2, is set to helm the reboot of Blacula. We'll have to trust that he knows what he's doing with the character, but instead of laughing at him, I want to see Mamuwalde be taken seriously. Time will tell if Hollywood will bring Blacula back from the ashes just one more time. So we are, for anybody watching, we are coming up on 1 hour, 28 minutes. 1 hour, 28 minutes, and we got 5 minutes until Blacula is over. And then we're just gonna go ahead. We're staying on this stream and we're gonna jump over to Scream Blacula Scream. Mm. Ah. But first, we have to wrap up the original movie. Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I like Blacula. I mean, I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. I think it definitely has its place in the canon, as you could say, in the genre and the and all that stuff. But I do like the film, despite its obvious limitations and its you know, stereotypes and slurs. Let's put it that way. I mean, you have to deal with the slurs and you have to deal with the stereotypes, but otherwise, it's a really fun, really entertaining black vampire film, and I think William Marshall deserves a lot of credit for what he brings to the table here as Blacula. I think I've seen it during a Saturday matinee at my local shithole theater. It was only 50 cents. Yeah, I'd pay 50 cents to watch Blacula in the theater. Why not? Actually, I would love to see like Alamo Draft House, like show this on like in October sometime. Just okay, we're gonna watch both Blacula movies. Like I said, I mean, I really do think that Donald Glover would make a quintessential Blacula. I really do think so. Keep that in mind, Dion. Keep him in mind. Aw. So evidently, Blacula was a box office hit. I mean, certainly enough to generate a sequel. And like I said, even though we don't go outside in the sequel as much as the original, I I'm with Brian. I do prefer the sequel. I mean, just for the cast alone, and we'll point it out when we get to it. We'll definitely point out the cast members, but I do like it just to the slightest edge over the original. Same way with Doctor Fives Rises Again, just slightly over the original. But honestly, I still would not give Blacula the award. I would not vote for Blacula as the best horror film of 1972. I can't do that. Not with the Sisters and Don't Torture a Duckling, coming just around the corner. And that's the thing. Like in this first film, we actually do see Blacula die. I mean, we do see him. The end credits start when we see his skull, and we see, he dies. For all intents and purposes, he dies at the end of Blacula. Oh, I love William Marshall's like when he attacks some of the women, he just goes, he goes up like a cat or something. He's really great. He's really great in this role. And we will not see these characters in the sequel. And as a matter of fact, aside from William Marshall, pretty much no actors carry on into the sequel. None of them actually do jump over. But yeah, we see his face being burned by the sun, and eventually we're going to see maggots in there. Look at those! Look at those fangs, man. That's and then we have a skull, and now we have our cast. Yes, so this is the conclusion of Blacula. Elisha Cook as Sam, Katie Lester as Juanita. Main Chance, sung by 21st Century Limited. And this has indeed been an American international picture. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump over right now. So we're not going to stop the stream. We're just going to jump over to the sequel right now. Let's see. Scream, Blacula, Scream. I'm watching it on excuse me, I'm watching it on Amazon here on it's included with AMC. If you have a subscription to AMC, you get both Blacula films. So paused on the MGM logo. I am currently paused on the MGM logo. I'll give everybody just one more minute to get caught up with me. Paused on the MGM logo for Scream, Blacula, Scream. But I want to give you all a quick preview as to the films that I'll be doing in the next week, because a lot of it will be on physical media. We will be watching it on my 4K television. We got Daughters of Satan, starring Tom Selleck, in what his basically his starring debut, which came out in 1972. Looking forward to doing that one. We also have Night of the Lepus, starring Stuart Whitman, Janet Leigh, and DeForest Kelly. This will be next week at 1 a.m., a 1 a.m. Commentary. I'm not going to say what it's about, but those who know what this film is, they're probably laughing their asses off right now. We're also going to be doing next Saturday night, we're going to do The Possession of Joel Delaney, starring Shirley MacLaine, which is a pre-Exorcist movie, possession movie. Next Sunday night, we're going to do Deathline, which was produced by Alan Ladd Jr. Tam Lin, directed by Roddy McDowall, will be the second movie on Sunday, starring Ava Gardner and Ian McShane. And on Halloween night, we'll be doing a 50th anniversary commentary for Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling, as well as a 100th anniversary commentary for the 1922 movie Haxan Witchcraft Through the Ages. So, why don't we go ahead and get started on Scream, Blacula, Scream here. Paused on the MGM logo, and we'll start on the count of 3, 2, 1, and play. Now, this movie is slightly longer than Blacula. It's actually about 3 minutes longer. And actually restart Scream, Blacula, Scream, because it was at the end of my it needed time to load. Okay, but play now. Just play now. MGM logo, Scream, Blacula, Scream. Just play now. Sorry about that. But yeah, Haxan, I'll be doing that Halloween night. Very much looking forward to that. Now, here we have the American International logo again, but this time we actually have on screen Samuel Z. Arkoff Presents In the Sky. That's actually a slight difference from the first Blacula movie, where we just had the logo in the sky. And there you go. So I do think this film, the sequel, Scream, Blacula, Scream, I do think it's more colorful than the original. I do think it's a little bit more entertaining than the original, a little bit more, a bit more fun. And also, it's got a great cast, starting with Pam Grier here, and also Richard Lawson. This is indeed Richard Lawson in the black and white jacket right here, hovering over Pam Grier. This prologue is actually a bit longer than the prologue in the first Blacula, which lasted about 7 minutes, but this one goes on for about 13, 14 minutes. This is actually a very, very extended prologue as we find out what's going on here. But as I said in my Twitter review of this movie, sequel to 1972 blaxploitation hit has vampire Marshall brought back to life via voodoo by cult heir Richard Lawson, seeking revenge for mother, appointing apprentice Pam Grier as the new queen of this cult. That's what I basically said. And while there is pretty much no continuity with the original, I do think it's more fun with plenty of delicious jive. Yeah, that's what I said. And I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which, here again, I think both of these movies are pretty much on par with each other in terms of giving the audiences what exactly they want out of black vampire movies. But I mean, Richard Lawson, if you do not recognize him yet, honestly, all throughout this opening voodoo sequence where he brings back William Marshall from the dead, I honestly had no idea who he was and realized that he eventually is one of the actors in one of the biggest and most famous horror films of the 1980s. And I've seen him in this movie 1,000 times, and yet I still didn't quite recognize him. So I'm going to give you all who's watching during the prologue here, if you can recognize Richard Lawson from another 80s horror film, because at first I didn't pick up on it. I just didn't pick up on it. Part of it is because of the the hair and everything. In the 1980s horror film, he has much shorter hair, and he does have pretty much a mustache as well. But here, of course, we have the wonderful Pam Grier. Although this is not a typical Pam Grier movie. This is not like Friday Foster or Coffee or something like that. No, no, no. She actually doesn't play a butt kicking heroine this time around, unfortunately. So for those who wanted to see Pam Grier versus Blacula, I'm afraid it's not quite that type of movie. But Scream Blacula Scream came out a year later in 1973. Came out on June 27th by American International Pictures, of course. And so, yeah, this is Bernie Hamilton as the Ragman, and he's virtually unrecognizable. But he is actually best known for playing Captain Doby in the television series Starsky and Hutch. But he's kind of unrecognizable here. He made his film debut in 1950 as Ernie in the Jackie Robinson story. He was also in the Harlem Globetrotters, Mysterious Island, Carmen Jones, Kismet, Underworld USA, Captain Sinbad. Scream Blacula Scream was one of his last movies. But he was also in a landmark film which came out in 1964 called One Potato, Two Potato, which was about a interracial romance between a black man and a white woman. Very controversial for 1964. And his last film was actually in a movie called Bucktown in 1975. But he was also in Stranger on the Run. And also his other big movie, I think, was The Swimmer, starring Burt Lancaster, where he played a chauffeur. So these bones right here are supposed to be Blacula's bones. Somehow Richard Lawson got a hold of these bones, and now he's going to bring Blacula back to life via voodoo. And if you haven't recognized Richard Lawson yet, I will just go ahead and reveal that he, in fact, is in the movie Poltergeist, directed by Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Tobe Hooper and produced by Steven Spielberg. He played Ryan. He played one of the paranormal investigators under the tutelage of Academy Award winner Beatrice Straight, who was in Network. And he plays the one that actually sticks around for the second night as they're trying to get Carol Ann out from the bedroom closet. But yeah, that is actually Richard Lawson. And what's interesting is that he's the only one to appear in the bonus material on the Blu-ray and the DVD. In fact, I remember I saw Poltergeist for a 25th anniversary screening many years ago. And he actually was in the bonus material that was going to be on the DVD that they play right after the movie. So, but apparently there's supposed to be a much more detailed Poltergeist documentary coming out very soon with Craig T. Nelson as well as Jo Beth Williams, who are both interviewed, and I'm assuming Zelda Rubinstein, even though she's no longer with us. And I think Richard Lawson will probably be interviewed on that as well, which will probably do a real genuine look into the franchise, sort of like what the documentary Psycho Legacy did, where it looked at all the Psycho films, not just the original Hitchcock film, but all the other sequels that are very, not really mentioned. But Richard Lawson was in Poltergeist, and he's really good in that. But he's also, of course, in a very minor part. But yeah, he manages to sets Blacula's bones on fire to bring him back to life. But I mentioned that, of course, Craig T. Nelson is, of course, the star of Poltergeist with Jo Beth Williams, who plays his wife. Well, apparently, Craig T. Nelson is evidently in this movie somewhere. Now, he's given credit as Craig Nelson without the middle initial T, but he's supposed to play a character that is just by the name of Sarge. But here's the thing. I haven't been able to find him. The last time I watched Blacula Scream earlier today, I could not find Craig T. Nelson, who, of course, later played Coach. And he was also in the second Poltergeist film. But apparently he's somewhere in this film as a police sergeant. Maybe you all watching with me could help me identify him, where he is. I like Craig T. Nelson. I actually like a lot of his work, and I actually share my birthday with him, believe it or not. But yeah, that's what I need you all to help me out here. I need to find Craig T. Nelson, who evidently shows up in this film as a police sergeant. So just to let everybody know, he's in this film somewhere. We need to try to find him together because I wasn't able to find him personally. I just wasn't able to. But just to make this commentary a bit more fun, if any of you know where he is, let me know. Let me know. Because it's pretty interesting that both of them would do Poltergeist later together in 1982. 9 years after Blacula Scream. See, Coors Light again. It's like these characters only drink Coors Light. In this universe, that's the only beer that exists. And that's a pretty nice mansion to have Coors Light. I don't know. But there's William Marshall's silhouette. And he's going to be coming up in here. But we need to let's talk a little bit more about Richard Lawson and say what else he's done. But he also played Dr. Ben Taylor in the 1983 television series V, which premiered in NBC in 1983, written and directed by Kenneth Johnson. And what's interesting about that is that another actor from Poltergeist, Dominique Dunn, production was halted for 2 weeks when she was 22. She played the daughter, the older daughter, Freeling daughter in the first Poltergeist, and she was cast to play the part of Robin Maxwell in V, the miniseries, but she was murdered outside her apartment by her ex-boyfriend while rehearsing with actor David Packer. Some scenes with her are still in the original series, but only of the back of her head. Blair Tefkin was hired to play Robin after her death. Johnson subsequently dedicated the series to her memory. So yeah, she was actually struggled to brain death by her boyfriend after Poltergeist came out in 1982. Very sad. But yeah, there's another connection to the Poltergeist films. But anyway, Richard Lawson, he was drafted into the United States Army and became a medic. He served 21 months in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and he was wounded in action. After completing his military duty, he embarked on an acting career. His first film role, uncredited, was that of a gay man targeted for murder in the classic 1971 movie Dirty Harry. In 1973, he played Willis in Scream, Blacula, Scream. His other well-known roles include the 1979 movie The Main Event and the 1984 drama Streets of Fire, where he played Officer Ed Price. Lawson's first ongoing starring role in a television series was in an Australian drama called Hotel Story in 1977. However, that series was canceled before the first episode aired. He later starred in the 1980 series Chicago Story, took the ongoing role of Nick Kimball on the primetime soap opera Dynasty with Joan Collins from 1986 to 87, and appeared in the Days and Nights of Molly Dodd as Detective Nathaniel Hawthorne from 89 to 91, and was in the daytime soap All My Children as Lucas Barnes from 92 to 94. Richard Lawson has made many guest appearances on television roles, including Kojak, Get Christy Love, Sister Sisters, Soul Food, The Bernie Mac Show, The Division, and Strong Medicine. So, and he was also in Audrey Rose. He was also in Coming Home, the great Hal Ashby movie, which came out in 1978 and got Best Actor and Best Actress. He was also in Wag the Dog. He played a CIA agent in that. He was also in How Stella Got Her Groove Back, Guess Who, the remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and for Color Girls, Searching for Neverland, and Always a Bridesmaid. Mm-hmm. Yep. And Richard Lawson is still with us, 75 years old, but still with us. And he wants to go out in this outfit, which of course, you know what? This would make a great Halloween costume now, wouldn't it? I mean, it would make I would rather wear what Richard Lawson's wearing than Blacula. Even though capes rock, I think I'd rather rock out with this. But okay, I love the fact that he is upset that he cannot check himself, that he cannot see that he looks good and everything, even though it's obvious he looks awesome. But but he's actually flustered at the fact that he can't see himself in the mirror, so he can check himself before going out. And Blacko was just like, "What? Who said you could go out? You're just going to serve me, damn it." Oh man, you're jiving. I mean, is the modern equivalent of that? Are you tripping? Or, I mean, it's probably different meanings. But are you jiving? I don't mind being a vampire and shit, but man, I gotta see this face. Yeah. Now, Scream Blacula Scream was nominated for Best Horror Film at the Saturn Awards, which by the way, the 47th annual Saturn Award Festival will be this Tuesday night. So Blacula won the award, the Best Horror Film at the first ceremony. At the second ceremony, Scream Blacula Scream lost to The Exorcist, obviously. That was indeed the horror film of 1973. Scream Blacula Scream just didn't stand a chance up against Linda Blair. Not a chance. But I do like Richard Lawson in this movie. I really do. He's so concerned about his appearance. He really is. More paced plus Pam Grier. Yep, definitely. Plus Pam Grier. I want that shirt at the very least. You go nowhere. You go nowhere. You get your ass back in here. Yep. You ain't going nowhere. So this movie, okay, now this is interesting. This was not directed by William Crain. This was directed by another director by the name of a weird name. I need to make sure I get it right. The director of Scream, Blacula, Scream is a man by the name of Bob Keljan. And Bob Keljan, he was born Robert Keljikian on June 23rd, 1930 in Union City, New Jersey. He began his show business career as an actor, appeared in episodes of both Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, but also pops up in small roles in the fun biker opus Hell's Angels on Wheels and the groovy hippie flick Psych Out. Keljan made his filmmaking debut as writer and co-director of the sordid incest drama Flesh of My Flesh in 1969. Sordid incest drama. That's what it says. Flesh of My Flesh. He achieved his greatest commercial success with the excellent drive-in horror hit Count Yorga Vampire, 1970, and its equally solid sequel, The Return of Count Yorga, in 1971. His other theatrical features include the funky blaxploitation outing Scream, Blacula, Scream, the splendidly sleazy vigilante revenge exploitation winner Act of Vengeance in 1974, and the enjoyable redneck action romp Black Oak Conspiracy in 1977. He also directed episodes of such TV shows as Hill Street Blues, Bring 'Em Back Alive, Fame, Police Story, Charles Angels, The Dukes of Hazzard, Vegas, Starsky and Hutch, and Wonder Woman. Tragically, he died at 52 years old from cancer on November 25th, 1982. So he only lived for 52 years from 1930 to 1982. Very sad. But yeah, he was known at this time for directing the Count Yorga vampire movies, which I've never seen. I've never seen them, unfortunately. I mean, maybe I might do them if I do the sequel in a couple of years' time. Maybe I might do it, but we'll have to see. Oh no, 1970 and 71. So their 50th anniversaries have already been passed. Maybe I'll do it for Halloween another year. I don't know. But I do like Scream, Blacula, Scream enough. Now, okay, so we have Bob Keljan. Now, here on screen, we have the actors. Oh, God. Lewis is played by Arnold Williams. I don't really have anything to say on him. But the lady who plays Elaine right here, the very beautiful Elaine, is played by an actress named Barbara Rhodes. Now, I know I had seen that name before. That's one of those names that, okay, I know I've seen her in something. And I did not recognize her at first. She hasn't done a lot of films, but the film that I know her from, that I've seen many, many times, is the 1977 movie The Goodbye Girl. She plays Donna Douglas, who is a friend of the female lead, played by Marsha Mason in that movie. Based on a screenplay by Neil Simon, it won Richard Dreyfuss the Academy Award for Best Actor. And Barbara Rhodes is really only in it for like a few scenes. I mean, she's just basically there for somebody for Marsha Mason to talk to. Not exactly a good friend, but somebody to talk to at certain times other than Richard Dreyfuss. But she was also in The Shakiest Gun in the West, Don't Just Stand There, There Was a Crooked Man, the Barbara Streisand movie Up the Sandbox. She did that in 1972. She was also in Harry and Tonto as Stephanie. That's the movie that won 1974's Best Actor that year. The Great Houdini, The Choir Boys, The Goodbye Girl, Serial in 1980, and her last movie was Firstborn in 2007. But she also did episodes of Mannix, Love American Style, Bewitched, McCloud, Kojak, Night Gallery, The Odd Couple, Kolchak, The Night Stalker, Ellery Queen, Starsky and Hutch, $6 Million Man, Eddie Capra Mysteries, Match Game, The Love Boat, Busting Loose, Father Dowling Mysteries, and One Life to Live. Yeah, still with us. She's 76 years old, but she is definitely still with us. But yeah, I only knew her from Goodbye Girl before watching this, really. So we're coming up on 22 minutes and 30 seconds. 22 minutes and 30 seconds into Scream, Blacula, Scream. Hope you are all enjoying the movies so far, as well as my commentary. But yeah, we're about to get another surprise right here. Yeah, and see, I agree with Brian Trash in that this is all more fast paced and everything. Yeah, it feels like it goes a little quicker, even though it's a longer movie, which is a little odd, but it still works. It's... I mean, William Marshall just makes these movies so much fun. He really does. I mean, I don't know. Could you see Billy D. Williams do this role? Maybe. the the black Clark Gable doing the black Bela Lugosi. I mean, maybe. So yeah, Barbara Rhodes, you're about to come to a unsavory end right here. Now, I didn't mention the makeup. I mean, the makeup is a little cheapish. It's 1970s cheapish type of makeup and everything, but it still does its purpose. I mean, but I think Richard Dawson looks pretty good as as a vampire right here. Just slowly coming down the stairs. You can't run as a vampire, or well, I guess he's like, well, it doesn't matter. You're not going to leave the house because everything's locked up. Yeah, we're going to get you no matter what. And look, Barbara Rhodes is basically just here to scream. Okay, let's make that perfectly clear right now. She's basically just here to scream. Yeah, and she screams a lot in this scene. I mean, after a while, I'm just like, oh man, Barbara, come on. Attack her already so she doesn't have to scream anymore. And finally, mercifully, she ends up passing out. Now, I don't know if I thought he's going to say something right here. I was thinking, are they unable to speak when they have the teeth in? Is that what's going on here? Because I thought for sure he would have started talking even with the teeth inside. But I guess in this movie's universe that when you become full vampire, you can't really talk English. I guess you could just make grunts and noises and everything, but you can't really actually speak, which is a little bizarre, but it's fine. Yeah, enjoy Donna Douglas's blood for the rest of the evening, because yeah, you've earned it, my boy. You've earned it. So, Well, I mean, actually, like William Marshall, he already had some blood. He already had some blood earlier, so it's like, okay, you can have this one. Oh, and more froze. Oh man, look at that! Look at that. Now, this lady that just appeared on the screen here, coming down the stairs here, this is an actress by the name of Janae Michelle. And if you recognize her, she's a former model, dancer, and business person, best known for the 1974 horror film The House on Skull Mountain. Now, I actually did a podcast with some friends on the House of Skull Mountain. I saw it earlier in the year. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't love it. It's a very voodoo driven type of horror story. But I'll probably do it in a couple of years. I'll probably end up doing a commentary on it in a couple of years. But we'll go back to Janae Michelle in a minute. But here on screen we have the second build to William Marshall. The actor Don Mitchell is here, who plays Justin Carter. Now Kirksey plays Professor Walton over there, all the way to the left. But we need to talk about Don Mitchell, who plays Justin Carter here. He was born in 1943, passed away in 2013 at the age of 70 years old. He was best known for appearing with Raymond Burr in the NBC television series Ironside from 1967 to 1975. He also played the role of Mark Sanger and reprised the role in the made-for-TV reunion film in 1993, noted as his last television appearance. He is a native of Houston, grew up on his grandfather's farm. He excelled in both football and basketball at his high school in Houston. His post-secondary education began at Los Angeles City College, from which he transferred to the University of California, LA. He studied acting. His acting at UCLA led to his role in Ironside as producer Collier Young saw Mitchell on stage in a production of Poor Betos, signed him for the show 3 weeks before production began. Mitchell's other television roles including Macmillan and Wife and playing Ed Lawrence on the CBS daytime soap opera Capital. He also appeared as a policeman in Bewitched and Dr. Sampson on Wonder Woman. He was also co-starred in the film Scream, Blacula, Scream. Yeah. And he passed away in Encino in 2013 at the age of 70 years old. So he was basically a big TV star at the time when this movie came out. But, the sequel didn't fare well at the box office nearly as much as the original did. So it probably affected his chance to get into more films, very sadly. But yeah, we have a little hip and groovy 70s party here happening with William Marshall escorting Pam Grier inside. Yeah, Pam Grier plays Lisa Fortier in this movie. But she made her film debut in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, or so we think. For anybody who can actually find her in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, it's probably easier to locate in that than Craig T. Nelson is easier to locate in Scream, Blacula, Scream. But like I said, keep an eye out for him. Keep an eye out for him, guys, because he's here somewhere. But Pam Grier started out in 1971 with The Big Dollhouse, Women in Cages, The Twilight People. She was also in Cool Breeze. The Big Birdcage, Hitman, Black Mama, White Mama, Coffee, The Arena, Foxy Brown, Bucktown, Friday Foster, which is my personal favorite of all the Pam Grier action movies of the 70s. Drum, Fort Apache, The Bronx, the Disney horror film Something Wicked This Way Comes, Above the Law, 1988, Original Gangsters. Pam Grier was also in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, as well as The Package, and of course Jackie Brown in 1997, which was Quentin Tarantino's way of bringing her back for a huge, huge movie. Obviously, a huge Pam Grier fan, but she's still doing movies. I mean, she was in Larry Crown with Tom Hanks and Bad Grandmas. Uh, there you go. Who else wants to see Bad Grandmas with Pam Grier? That sounds like a real box office hit. She was also in Roots, The Next Generation, The Love Boat, Night Court, Crime Story, Monsters, The Pacific Station, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Marshall, The Wild Thornberrys, and the last thing she did, she provided a voice for this animated show called The Great North with Nick Offerman. So she's still working. She's still working. She's 73 now. Definitely. And the actress who plays Denny, who we get to see several times throughout the rest of this movie, is played by an actress named Lynn Moody, born in 1945, best known as Tracy Curtis Taylor in the ABC television sitcom That's My Mama from 1974 to 1975, Irene Harvey in Roots, and Roots The Next Generation, and Patricia Williams in Knots Landing. In 1970, Moody moved to Los Angeles, where she was initially hired to work as a Playboy bunny at the Playboy Club. While working at the Playboy Club, Moody studied acting at the Pasadena Playhouse. Moody later studied at Goodman Theater and Hull House. In 1973, the same year as Blacula Scream, she was the original Jenny Willis when the character was introduced in an episode of All in the Family titled Lionel's Engagement in 74. By the time the pilot episodes of The Jeffersons aired in 75, the role was recast with Berlinda Tolbert, replacing her as Jenny Willis. In the fall of 1974, Moody landed the role of Tracy Curtis Taylor in That's My Mama with Clifton Davis and Teresa Merritt. Moody portrayed the character throughout the series' first season, later being replaced by Joan Pringle at the beginning of the second season. According to a 1975 Jet article, Moody's manager, Michael Cogg, described Moody's exit from the show as, quote, she didn't like the part anymore. After her exit from That's My Mama, Moody received a starring role in women in prison exploitation TV movie Nightmare in Badham County, later released to theaters as Nightmare in 1976. Moody portrayed Irene Harvey in Alex Haley's ABC television miniseries Roots, had other television roles such as Patricia Williams in Knots Landing, Nurse Julie Williams in ER, and in 2000, Moody had a recurring role in the hit ABC daytime drama General Hospital as Florence Campbell. And this was her first film, her very first film in the character of Denny. And the last thing that she did was in the late 2000s, but she's still with us at the age of 77. Still with us at 77. Mm-hmm. All right, we're coming up here on the 35-minute mark. 35-minute mark of Blacula Scream, and we have approximately 1 hour and 1 minute to go. And I think I've already run out of things to talk about, unfortunately. Oh, man. Oh, this is interesting. Thank you, Cliff. Pam Grier was a hussy in her episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh, okay. I don't know if that's tempting enough to make me go back and watch it, but I know. I mean, I'd rather watch Coffee or Friday Foster or, of course, Jackie Brown. You know, she's done her fair share of really good films, even within these genres. Look at these clothes that they're wearing. I mean, these funky early 1970s get-ups are, They're wonderful. William Marshall just hanging out in the shadows, as vampires, of course, like to do. Scream Blacula Scream did not perform as well as its predecessor and drew mixed critical reviews. Roger Ebert gave the film 1.5 stars out of a possible 4. He wrote that Scream Blacula Scream shows some evidence of having been made in a hurry with limited funds, with poor lighting, sometimes confusing camera work, and a nonsensical script. Despite these flaws, Roger Ebert praised Marshall for bringing a terrifying dignity to his role, while Grier has a spirit and enthusiasm that's refreshing. Gene Siskel, on the other hand, gave Scream Blacula Scream 3.5 stars out of 4. Wrote, quote, I am pleased to report that Scream Blacula Scream, a sequel, is better than the original. A successful sequel is a rarity, but this one doesn't come as a surprise because the director is Bob Keljan, the man responsible for Count Yorga Vampire and The Return of Count Yorga, two of the most frightening horror films ever made. Oh. Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times agreed that the sequel is far superior to the original, possessing much assured style as well as considerable humor. That's because writers Joan Torres and Raymond Koenig, aided by Maurice Jules, have turned out a more polished script, and above all, because AIP assigned Bob Keljan, who made the vampire movies, such a delight to direct. Roger Greenspun of the New York Times, however, stated the film was not, as the title might suggest, too much fun for anybody. I disagree. That the director hasn't enough for the writers to do. It is if the movie had completed filming without there having been developed a shooting script. Jeff Brown of the Monthly Film Bulletin wrote that, deprived of his initial novelty, this African prince with the urbane manner and resonant voice seems indistinguishable from the common Caucasian variety of vampire, and his adventures will excite only the most undemanding of audiences. The mixture of blaxploitation and horror does offer intriguing possibilities, but Keljan and his screenwriters prefer to take the well-trodden path in which fangs are dug in and screams are dragged out with depressing orthodoxy. Don't agree with him. The 1980 book, The Golden Turkey Awards, awarded the film the distinction as the worst blaxploitation movie. Definitely disagree with that. In the book, authors Michael Medved and Harry Medved freely admit that they chose Scream Blacula Scream as much for the rowdy crowd at a late-night Skid Row theater screening as for the action on screen. Well, guess what, Medved brothers? I was not there for that screening, okay? I watched it streaming, and I perfectly enjoyed it just watching it streaming. And here he turns into the bat now. After he passed on a prostitute and had to deal with her pimps. That's actually a very funny sequence. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cheap animation, but it gets the job done. You get it. You get it. And here he is again. Oh yeah, this scene is coming up. Yeah, this scene with the prostitute and the pimps is coming up here. It's really good. But this is really the only time we're outside and we're actually, with some exteriors as opposed to interiors. I mean, most of this film were actually indoors, but here is a rare exception to jumping outside for once in this movie. Drop in anytime. Visa, MasterCard, use what you want. So here we have a prostitute hanging out in front of this furniture store. Good evening. You want some company? And he has no idea what the hell she's talking about. You want some company? Oh, forget it. Oh, come on. You're going to resist the charms of William Marshall? What's your problem? Come on now. And of course, her pimps are wondering what the hell just happened. Don't you dig our merchandise? You don't dig our girls, man? Hey, man, with threads like that, figured you got to be loaded, don't you? Yeah. Okay. The moral of the story is just because somebody wears a cape doesn't mean they have a lot of money. Okay. What is it you want? Shit, your bread, man, all of it. We're gonna have to become antisocial and kick your ass. You dig? Yeah. Blacula's being honest. And as for kicking my ass, I strongly recommend that you give it careful consideration before trying. Yeah. You made a slave of your sister and imitating your slave masters. It's these little touches that really resonate with the black audiences. Boom! Right through the window. Right through the window. Yep. We are coming up on 43 minutes and 30 seconds into Scream Blacula Scream. Like I said, keep an eye out for Craig T. Nelson wherever you can find him, because, like I said, I wasn't able to find him. And like I said, his name is just Sarge. So you got to assume that he's a police sergeant, but like could he be this guy right here in the entranceway? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, with all them wearing their helmets, it's very hard to see. It's like with Roger Moore. I saw a movie from 1952 where he plays like a Roman soldier, but you got like 500 Roman soldiers on screen all wearing helmets. Well, that's kind of the problem here, is that I can't tell who Craig T. Nelson is because all the police are wearing their caps. So it's hard to tell. But this actor right here, who plays Lieutenant Harley Dunlop, this is an actor by the name of Michael Conrad. He was born in 1925, passed away in 1983 at the age of 58. He was an American actor, best known for his portrayal of veteran cop Sergeant Phil Esterhaus in Hill Street Blues, in which he ended the introductory roll call to each week's show with, "Let's be careful out there." That's Michael Conrad. He won 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series for Hill Street Blues in 1981 and 1982. So pretty much when his co-star sadly died at a very young age. Yeah. Yeah, that's Michael Conrad right here. He served in the Army during World War II. He also appeared on the television series Car 54, Where Are You? In an uncredited bit as a construction worker. Played Felton Grimes, the title character in Murder Victim and Perry Mason. And also played a villain named AC in My Favorite Martian. In 1972, Conrad played Michael Stitvik's conventional Polish-American uncle Casimir on 2 episodes of All in the Family. Same year, he appeared together with Richard Crenna and Alain Delon in the French-language film Un Flic, directed by Jean-Pierre Melville. He also had a memorable role in the 1974 film Longest Yard, playing Nate Scarborough, a retired NFL tight end of the New York Giants, who was also the head coach for the Mean Machine, the team of prisoners put together by Burt Reynolds' character Paul Crewe to play the team of guards. During the 76-77 season of Del Vecchio, Conrad was a regular as Lieutenant McAvin. But he's best known for Hill Street Blues. And he died from cancer in November 1983 during the 4th season of Hill Street Blues. Show's writers wrote his death into the show, although they credited the character's death to a different reason. Okay. So, yeah, that's Michael Conrad. That's Michael Conrad in the role of Lieutenant Harley Dunlop. Yep. And here we have Pam Grier again. Now, I got to say, because last December I did an audio commentary on Diamonds Are Forever, which is, of course, the next to last James Bond film that Sean Connery appeared in. And right after that, of course, we had Live and Let Die with Roger Moore. I got to be honest, as much as I love Jane Seymour in Live and Let Die, I mean, don't get me wrong, sexy as hell, and she looks great in that. I really wonder what it would have been like if Pam Grier had played opposite Roger Moore in Live and Let Die, which came out the same year, 1973, as Scream Blacula Scream. I mean, I think the Bond producers were I think they got cold feet, because they were making like a blaxploitation James Bond movie, and yet Solitaire is still a white girl. And I wish that, had they cast a black in the role, it obviously should have been Pam Grier. I think it's absolutely obvious. I love Pam Grier, and I think it would have been awesome to see her opposite Roger Moore in Live and Let Die. But at least we got Jackie Brown. At least we got Friday Foster and Foxy Brown. We still got plenty of Pam Grier to go around. I got to admit. Oh yeah, I was going to continue talking about Janine Michelle, yeah, who's appearing back here, the star of the 1974 horror film The House of Skull Mountain. She adopted the stage name Janine Michelle because her talent agent and the film studio both believed her birth name would be poorly received. Michelle's acting in the television series The Outcasts in 1968 was critically acclaimed, which led to several offers of film roles, both in the 1969 episode of The Governor and JJ, and in the 1970 film Soul Soldier. She acted alongside her then husband, Robert DeQuee. And if you remember, Robert DeQuee appeared as the police sergeant in the RoboCop films, RoboCop 1, 2, and 3. He was also in one of my favorites, Cloak and Dagger, where he played the police sergeant in that one as well. In 1977, Janine Michelle was the queen in New Orleans Mardi Gras Zulu parade. She was the first Zulu queen to wear 2 different gowns, both of which were designed by Bob Mackie, who had designed outfits for Cher. She divorced DeQuee in 1978, married New Orleans politician Robert H. Tucker the following year. She changed her name to G. Tucker and became a business person. In 1980, the couple founded Tucker and Associates, a management consulting company that in 1990 received a $26 million contract with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, representing the largest contract that had ever been received by a minority-owned company in Louisiana. While working on this contract, Michelle and Tucker started a second company called Integrated Logistical Support. And let's see. At age 13, Michelle created, produced, designed, and directed a dance show at the YWCA in New Orleans. She was named Miss New Orleans in 1960. And let's see. One of her early television advertisement appearances was for Ultra Sheen hair products. In 1964, Michelle, still known by her birth name Geneva, received her first film role in the short film The Legend of Jimmy Blue Eyes, which was nominated for an Academy Award. Her contract did not allow her to receive residuals when the film later aired on television. Her talent agent and the film studio both believed her birth name would be received poorly, so she adopted the stage name Janine Michelle. Or Janae, pronounced Janae, excuse me. She chose the name Janae to keep her first two syllables of her birth name, and she chose the surname Michelle because she thought it would be unique to have a name with two first names. When she found people had a difficulty pronouncing the name Janae, she considered changing it again, but decided against it because she believed this pronunciation difficulty caused people to remember her. Well, yeah, she's probably right. She's probably right. Michelle was included in the magazine Ebony's list of 50 eligible girls for 1969. Also that year, she again appeared on the cover of Jet, which called her one of Hollywood's most attractive actresses. The article declares Michelle to be of several up-and-coming African-American actresses, along with Gloria Foster, Gail Fisher, and Denise Nicholas, who, of course, was in the original Blacula. In the corresponding interview with Jet, Michelle said that although racial inequality in the United States may have been a career obstacle for African American women in the past, that's not it today, and that's for sure. Michelle argued that her success as an actor proved the falsehood of the idea that African American women need to have sexual intercourse with certain people to become successful in the cinema of the United States. In 1973, she collaborated with actors Judy Pace and Lillian Lehman to found Kwanzaa, a Hollywood, California-based nonprofit organization named after the African diaspora celebration Kwanzaa. Run entirely by African-American actresses on a volunteer basis, Kwanzaa initially provided food to people in need at Christmas. Michelle and the other two co-founders each enlisted 5 other African-American actresses to volunteer with the organization, and together they raised enough funds to provide food to 75 families that first Christmas. By 1976, the organization had fed more than 2,000 individuals and expanded to function year-round. Michelle is best known for her role in the 1974 horror film The House on Skull Mountain, which was once an obscure film but became better known when it was released on DVD. She portrays Lorena Christoph, who is summoned to the house of a recently dead distant relative who is a voodoo queen. Christoph is the love interest of the main character, who is portrayed by Victor French. In the Encyclopedia of African American Actresses in Film and Television, Bob McCain writes that Michelle is, quote, quite pretty and gives a charming performance in her undemanding role. A Variety reviewer provided a similar appraisal of Michelle's appearance, calling her attractive and her role chic. In 2014, she appeared in a health insurance television advertisement for AARP. Yep. Yep. And so she's definitely still with us. She's 75 or 76 years old. But yeah, she is among the other actors here who's still with us, including Richard Lawson. So we are coming up on the 55-minute mark. The 55-minute mark, and we got 41 minutes left to go in Scream, Blacula Scream. Yeah, that's the thing. I wish they could have trimmed maybe 15 minutes out of this. I mean, maybe if it was a little, even a little shorter than the original, that would have been cool. But this is a great scene, though, when Janae rises from the coffin here. This is pretty cool. Yeah, Pam Grier is just. Oh man. The film was released theatrically in the United States in June of 1973 by American International Pictures, released by DVD on MGM in 2004 as part of its Soul cinema series. The film was digitized in high definition in 2010, and Screen Factory released the film on Blu-ray in 2015 with the original Blacula. And like I said, it does have an interview with Richard Lawson, as well as a commentary on the first film. So they basically gave one extra to each movie, a commentary for Blacula and a interview with Richard Lawson for the second movie. Oh, this is kinky. Come here. She just rose in a coffin. You're gonna, like I said, this is not the butt kicking Pam Grier we all know and love, unfortunately. But hmm. Closer, closer. uh, let's see here. I've kind of run out of things to say now officially for both movies, even though we still got like 38 minutes to go. So just bear with me here a little bit as I try to find something else. I'm not sure what else to say about these two films. I've kind of exhausted myself now, but we got more cool stuff with here with William Marshall and Pam Grier coming up. Before this picture came out, employees of American International Pictures were asked to submit titles for a contest. One of the props of this film, a crucifix, appeared in the Louis Theroux documentary Louis and the Nazis. It is owned by John Malpezzi. Okay. Several scenes in this film are backed by a creepy musical tonality, similar or almost identical to the one used in The Exorcist. I didn't notice that actually. But it should be noted that the cinematography for this film is a different one from the original. Here we have Isidore Mankovsky is his name. Born in 1931, passed away last year at the age of 89. Yeah, passed away in 2021. Was an American cinematographer nominated for 2 Emmys. He is best known for his work on films such as The Muppet Movie and The Jazz Singer from 1980. He shot more than 200 educational movies for Encyclopedia Britannica, and he died at his home in LA in March of 2021. His first movie that he shot was AKA Cassius Clay in 1970 and Werewolves on Wheels in 1971. Then he shot Scream Blacula Scream in 73, The Ultimate Thrill, Lanigan's Rabbi, The Muppet Movie, Somewhere in Time. Now, that's one of my favorite movies with Christopher Reeve. I have that on Blu-ray as well. In the Custody of Strangers, Baby Sister, Quarterback Princess, The Burning Bed with Farrah Fawcett, Better Off Dead with John Cusack, Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, One Crazy Summer, A Very Brady Christmas, Parent Trap 3, Skin Deep, which I also have on Blu-ray. That's with John Ritter. Afterburn, Deo, Bed of Lies, Father and Scout, The Heidi Chronicles, and in 1996 was his last movie called She Cried No. Okay. And the music this time is by Bill Marks, who does the score, which I really dig the music for both films, to be perfectly honest. But Bill Marks also composed the scores for the Count Yorga horror films. Still with us, born in 1937. Also scored Act of Vengeance. Oh, and he's related to the Marx Brothers. He was, Groucho was his uncle. Groucho, Chico, and Zeppo were all his uncles. And Bill Marx is the son of Harpo Marx. Oh, Bill Marx, who shot Scream Blacula Scream, is the son of Harpo Marx and Susan Fleming. That's amazing. And he also shot, let's see here. He also composed No Deposit, No Return, Terror at Red Wolf Inn, Deathmaster, Walk the Angry Beach, The Astral Factor, and also a documentary called The Unknown Marx Brothers, where he did the music for that. Let's see. Hmm. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'm going to try to fill up these last 34 minutes. 34 minutes with something. I'll try to figure something out here as I stretch this out. Blacula was imprisoned in a coffin in the 1770s and only released in the previous film, meaning that between the two films, he has been active in the modern world for only about a week. Yet in this film, he plays Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata on the piano, a song he is unlikely to have heard, much, much less learned to play. And here we have Richard Lawson appearing in a cool red hat and I guess his own cape now. I'm waiting, I'm the inspiration. It's got to be something special. You would dare. Oh shit, what'd I do? Yes. Richard Lawson is really a lot of fun in this movie. He really adds a lot to it, really brings much to it. Really good. That nothing should ever happen to Lisa. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, a lot of the user reviews at IMDb give the movie positive marks as well. A lot of 6s and 7s. A lot of 6s and a lot of 7s out of 10s. Yeah. It's better than you think. I'm a Dracula fan, and I really got a kick out of this film. True, if you try to perceive it as a merely serious horror, you might be disappointed. But if you view it as a Dracula genre blaxploitation meets Hammer Films 1970s culture shock satire, then it's a lot of fun. Sure, I'll watch anything with Pam Grier in it, and I have. And I love William Marshall's deep-voiced, precisely dictioned intonations as well. How many actors can walk into a 1970s black nightclub in a tux and a cape, sans afro, and carry it off with his effortless aplomb? But this film has more than humor. It was fairly well thought out in its entertaining escapism. It also has all the usual funny little peccadillos of the low-budget film genre. These are numerous and often hilarious. I watch it almost every time I see it on cable. Of course, I also love Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde with Bernie Casey. For my money, any Dracula is good Dracula, or is that Blacula? Okay. Blacko meets coffee. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Enjoyable horror blaxploitation. Yeah. Now, let me see as far as alternative reviews. Let's look at this real quick. I really like Lisa Marie Bowman, and she wrote it about it for TSL's Horror Grindhouse in 2017. Am I correct in assuming that everyone knows who Blacula was? Blacula is often described as being the Black Dracula, but actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that. In life, he was an African prince named Mamawalde, who in 1780 went to Dracula's castle and asked for the court's help in suppressing the slave trade. Dracula turned him into a vampire instead, and after declaring that Mamawalde would forever be known as Blacula, he proceeded to lock Mamawalde in a coffin. That's where Mamawalde remained for 290 years until he managed to escape. By that point, his coffin had been relocated from Transylvania to Los Angeles. All that was revealed in the 1972 film Blacula. Blacula, which starred a distinguished Shakespearean actor named William Marshall in the lead role, was a surprise hit. So, of course, Mamawalde returned the following year in a sequel. It didn't matter that the first Blacula ended with Mamawalde deliberately ending his existence by walking out into the sunlight. Blacula would return. It also doesn't matter if anyone in the audience for Scream, Blacula Scream, excuse me, had somehow misseen the first movie. Scream, Blacula Scream features lengthy flashbacks to the first film. It makes sense, really. Why waste money on an all-new footage when you can just pad the sequel with scenes from the predecessor? I'm disappointed to say Scream, Blacula Scream did not feature any disco action. When I saw this movie would be airing on TCM Underground, I decided to watch it specifically because I figured there would be at least one scene of Blacula dancing underneath a spinning disco ball. I mean, it was a movie from the 70s, right? Honestly, I think that if Scream Blacula Scream had been made later in the decade, it would have featured at least one disco dance scene. What the film did have was a lot of voodoo. Judging from this movie, Live and Let Die in the House of Skull Mountain, it would appear that people in the early 70s were really obsessed with voodoo. When the film opens, a voodoo priestess named Mama Loa is dying. She just named her apprentice Lisa as the new head of the cult. Mama Loa's son, Willis, played by Richard Lawson, isn't happy about this decision. So for some reason, he decides it would be a good thing to bring Blacula back to life. Willis apparently thought that the revived Blacula would be his servant, but it doesn't work out like that. First off, Blacula was perfectly happy being dead. Second, he is no one's servant. Blacula promptly bites Willis on the neck, then proceeds to vampirize him, nearly everyone that he comes across. Soon Blacula has an army of vampires, but all he wants is to be human again. And who can help him reach that goal? How about the city's newest voodoo priestess, Lisa? Now, I will say this about Scream Blacula Scream. The main character is named Lisa, and that automatically makes it an above-average movie. The entire movie features people saying Lisa over and over again, and you know I love listening to that. Other than that, the movie was kind of a mess. It was obviously written and filmed in a hurry, and as a result, a lot of the action felt like padding. For a subplot that wasn't interesting to begin with, the voodoo cult power struggle got way too much screen time. On the plus side, William Marshall and Pam Grier were both 100 times better than the material they had to work with. Regardless of how ludicrous the dialogue was, Marshall delivered it with dignity and just the right hint of ennui. Scream Blacula Scream is not a particularly good film, but it's worth seeing for Marshall and Grier. Harpo Marx composed the music for the beautiful song Guardian Angels, sung by American tenor Mario Lanza. Those talents must have rubbed off on his son Bill. Probably. I would imagine so. Get rid of that real quick. And okay. Do you believe in any of it? Occult rituals? Let me say that I believe that there are many things that exist. This is like the conversation in the first Blacula. Yes. Do you believe in the cult? Oh, I find it somewhat fascinating. You know, I find it somewhat interesting. Yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe. I don't know. Where are you going with this? A born cynic. Yeah. We just passed the 1 hour and 9 minute mark. 1 hour and 9 minutes, and now we have approximately 26 minutes left to go in Scream Blacula Scream. Now, just to let everybody know that tomorrow I will be doing 5 days, one summer, sometime in the afternoon. I haven't chosen a time for it yet. But later tomorrow night, I will be going out. I'm actually going to go see Ty West's Pearl, the sequel to X. I'm finally going to be watching that in the theater. We don't know when that's going to hit physical media or streaming yet, but a lot of people have been talking about Pearl, including Martin Scorsese, of all people. So I'm finally getting out to the theater to check that out. And hopefully have some nice alcohol and a meal at the same time. So that'll be tomorrow night. And next week we'll be doing films like I said at 1 a.m. like Encounter with the Unknown, narrated by Rod Serling, Daughters of Satan, starring Tom Selleck, and Night of the Lepus, starring Janet Leigh and DeForest Kelley. That will be all at 1 a.m. next week. And then next weekend will be my spooky sextet of movies, 2 Saturday night, 2 Sunday night, 2 Halloween night. First night, we're doing The Possession of Joel Delaney, starring Shirley MacLaine, as well as Sisters, directed by Brian De Palma. On October 30th, we're going to be doing Deathline and Tam Lin. And then finally, Halloween night, we're going to do Don't Torture a Duckling and Haxan. All that will be coming up for the rest of October on my channel. Anyway, anybody out in the chat, Brian Trash, Cliff Booth, and Rob Gasper, any more comments on Blacula or Scream Blacula Scream? Just let me know, and I will share them and everything. Because I honestly am pretty much out of things to say, even though we got 24 minutes left to get through. 24 minutes left to get through of Scream, Blacula Scream. What else can I get here? Something else. How do you revive a vampire who attempted to take himself out by stepping into the sun? Well, voodoo, of course. From Maniac Cop 3 to Victor Crawley, voodoo spells have proven to be a perfectly acceptable way to bring back horror villains whose days appear to be over. And before those movies did it, the Blacula sequel, Scream Blacula Scream, already got there. Directed by Bob Kelgen from a screenplay by Joan Torres, Raymond Koenig, and Maurice Jules. This one begins with the queen of a voodoo cult passes away, and the woman's son Willis learns that her followers plan to disregard him as her heir, since he's not a very pleasant person, and elect Lisa Fortier, the always awesome Pam Grier, their new leader instead of him. In the mood for revenge, Willis seeks the help of the cult's former leader, who also feels wrong because he was thrown out by his followers. Probably because he's not very pleasant either. This guy gives Willis the bones of Blacula, the idea being that Willis will revive the vampire and command him to attack the cult for him. The plan doesn't work out well at all. As soon as Blacula, again played by William Marshall, is revived, he bites Willis and turns him into his lackey. Before being turned into a vampire by Dracula hundreds of years ago, Blacula was Prince Mamawalde of the Abani tribe in Africa. After meeting Lisa and learning of how skilled she is in voodoo, he comes up with the idea that she could perform an exorcism on him to get rid of his vampirism so he can return to Africa and live in peace. But don't worry, just because Blacula doesn't want to be a vampire anymore doesn't mean he doesn't suck any blood while waiting to be cured. He has drained plenty of bodies and created plenty more vampire minions by the time we reach the climax and the exorcism attempt. While I feel that Scream Blacula Scream is a step down from its predecessor because the story isn't quite as good, it is a decent sequel. I can't complain about a follow-up that adds voodoo and Pam Grier into the mix, and Marshall again turns in a terrific performance as the vampire. In fact, Marshall is so good in this role that I'm disappointed they didn't pump out more Blacula sequels over the years just so we could continue to watch him play this character. Sadly, they didn't make a third Blacula movie at any point before Marshall passed away in 2003 at the age of 78. Did you mention that William Marshall was the king of cartoon on Pee-wee's Playhouse? I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I haven't seen either one. I've definitely enjoyed them. Yeah, I definitely enjoy them too. And like I said, if this reboot proves to be good, then hopefully we'll see more Blacula movies. I think the time is now right more than ever for another Blacula movie. Yeah, definitely. The Devil's Reviews. That's difficult to read. Let's see. The Blacula films have always stirred mixed emotions in me. This is from the Reprobate Press from 2020. As a kid, the very idea of these movies intrigued me thanks to striking stills and write-ups in horror movie books. And as an adult, I really wanted the films to be great, given that they combine two genres I loved, horror and blaxploitation. Yet my first viewings of the films left me rather disappointed. The movies failed to live up to the expectations that I had, and I was subsequently rather dismissive of the pair. Catching them again now, I can appreciate their qualities more, but I still think they're a mixed bag. These are, after all, films with a catch-penny title, character, and gimmick, and yet they seem to struggle to match the excesses of other blaxploitation cinema of the era. This is strictly PG-rated horror. We're talking the early 70s American PG, admittedly. And Excuse me, and both films seemed overly restrained when you compare them to anything from Superfly to Coffee. And both, the first in particular, suffer badly from pacing issues, lacking an incident, and not seeming to really know what to do with the lead character. And yet, both films are a lot more serious than you would expect from a film called Blacula. If the title screams trashy exploitation, the actual films are more thoughtful. Much of this is due to William Marshall, who brings the titular character rather than more gravitas than you would thought possible. Dignity is the word most often used to describe the properties of his performance, which is a word loaded with racial suggestion, perhaps, but it's also accurate. His Blacula is dignified. This is a character that could, indeed should, have been cheesy, comedic, stereotyped. Marshall, much to his credit, works hard to ensure that it isn't the case. His vampire is at once tortured, savage, and romantic, able to move from urbane to monstrous in a moment, and he is one of the few vampire figures of the era to be a somewhat sympathetic character, as much victim as villain. It's possible that's a trashier Blacula would have made the films into more the sort of thing the title suggests, but it's in a large part down to Marshall they remain as well remembered as they are. The first film starts impressively, with Prince Mamuwalde visiting Count Dracula in order to enlist his support in stopping the slave trade. Clearly, he hasn't done his research very well if he thinks Dracula is some sort of humanitarian, and the pair quickly disagree. Dracula vampirizes Mamuwalde and has him locked in a coffin, destined to live out in eternity, suffering from an unquenchable lust for blood. This is a striking start. Dracula, for no other reason other than looking incredibly cool, and maybe an unintentional makeup reaction with the actor's eye, has a bloody tear run down his cheek as he curses the Black Prince with his own name. You shall be Blacula. It's a scene that should be tacky, but the two actors bring a seriousness to it. Blacula is then released in the present day of a pair of screamingly camp interior decorators who bought the contents of Castle Dracula and is soon leaving victims scattered across LA. But when he encounters Tina, he is struck by her resemblance to his wife Luva, and he begins to romance her. Meanwhile, her friend Dr. Gordon Thomas is reaching the conclusion that the series of strange deaths take place in the work of a vampire, and that the vampire is Mamuwalde in classic horror movie style. He reaches these conclusions with little evidence other than hunches. Will Mamuwalde persuade Tina to join him amongst the undead before the cops close in? Blacula suffers from the problems faced by Hammer with some of their Dracula movies, namely how to find enough for their monster to actually do. Marshall gets to monster out on a few occasions, and the film has him transform into something more animalistic looking, with facial hair suddenly sprouting as he becomes Blacula. But all too often is left to mope around looking lost. The attempts to make him both scary and violent and tragic and tortured result in a rather schizophrenic feel to the film, and it's hard to decide if we should be rooting for him as a hero or fearing him as a villain. But the film is smoothly handled by director William Crain, has interesting characters, manages to balance straight-faced drama with comedic moments. The whole reincarnated lover angle is a cliche now, of course, and increasingly seems part of the Dracula movie narrative. Yet it was a new idea here, and it leads to one of the oddest endings of any vampire film, where Mamuwalde, his newly vampirist love interest having been stalked, loses the will to live and wanders out into the sunlight to commit suicide. As horror movie endings go, it's a little weak. An anticlimax almost, but it's certainly unusual, and the disintegration scene is impressively icky. Yeah. Blacula was back a year later in the rather better Blacula Scream. The film improves on its predecessor in several ways. Director Bob Kelton had previously transplanted a Dracula-like figure in modern-day America with the Count Yorga movies, and he brings the same style to this film. A slow-motion attack is very Yorga in feel, and there's more overt horror in this film. It also has Pam Grier, who is an asset to any film, and here provides a more interesting female lead. Voodoo cult priestess Lisa Fortier might not have the kick-ass attitude of most Grier characters, but at least she's given more to do than simply be a love interest or a victim. And the voodoo theme not only makes the story more intriguing, but also ties it to Mamuwalde's African roots. In this story, Blacula is resurrected by Willis, a bitter cult member who has failed in his bid for power and wants revenge. When he gets excuse me. When he gets vampirized by Mama Walde, who no longer seems as tortured by the loss of his great love. Certainly, all thoughts of suicide seem to have left him, and he soon collected an entire band of vampire followers. Why, of course, is there never made clear. Lisa's boyfriend, Justin, is an ex-cop who starts putting the pieces together, even as Mama Walde convinces her to use her voodoo powers to get rid of him of his curse. There's an interesting twist and allows some character development that we rarely seen in Dracula movies. Mama Walde is evil, yes, but not through choice. He has no control over his actions, and in lucid moments wants to be released from the curse of vampirism. It's a nice moment of ambiguity. Is he sympathetic or not? And he is worse than the muggers, dealers, and pimps he encounters, and attacks who are, as he says, worse than slavers because they enslave themselves and their own people. The idea of Blacula as some sort of moral avenging angel might have been an interesting one to explore, but the film doesn't really go very far. Like Blacula, the sequel is better than it should be in many ways, and is certainly better paced than its predecessor. It still feels a little plodding and restrained, but on the whole, it's a lot more fun. And Marshall seems entirely comfortable in the role. So while neither of these films could be seriously called great, both are entertaining examples of early 70s horror cinema. And it's the horror genre that they feel both part of now rather than blaxploitation cinema. They are certainly better films than they really should be, and the title character is the one who I wish I had seen more of. And yeah, he reviewed the sequel on Blu-ray. Yeah. So we are now 1 hour and 23 minutes. 1 hour and 23 minutes into Scream Blacula Scream. 13 minutes left to go. And I am so ready to be done with this. So ready to be done. Now, as I said before, I tried watching. This is pretty good. This was pretty good right here. I try to keep an eye out for Craig T. Nelson wherever he is in one of those cop uniforms. I couldn't catch him. But there's a lot of cops that appear on screen during this climax. And like I said, I just wasn't able to catch him anywhere. Not anywhere. Oh! Right through the heart. Yeah, take that. Take that, Richard Lawson. Damn. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of sweat in this movie. There really is a lot of sweat. Oh! Oh, and the captain is using the sticks now. There you go. There's Richard Lawson going for you. Yeah. And see, Blacula is obviously trying to just get human again through the voodoo, and hopefully he'll be able to live a new life, I guess, in 1972 Los Angeles after all this voodoo. That might be Craig Nelson right there. I don't know. I just can't tell. I don't think that's him, though. But yeah, like I said, he's one of the police sergeants. I just don't know who. For the life of me, I tried, but I couldn't find him. Just couldn't find him. They look like they're having orgasms, right? I mean, the voodoo stuff, I don't know. I don't buy the voodoo stuff. You know, I didn't buy it in House on Skull Mountain either, but, you know, but I have a feeling that more people would cite that as a better example of voodoo than this. Yeah. That's not Craig T. Nelson. That can't be him. That just can't be him. But he came prepared though. He's got the arrows. He came prepared. No, the shoulder is not going to help. You have to hit him in the heart. Let's try this again now. There you go. That's much better. Much better shot. Much better shot. Richard Lawson's finally going to die here. Oh. Oh. So, yeah, what are you going to do now? Now I'm going to try to get you at a very, very slow pace. Yeah. Going up the stairs here. Denny? Yeah, see, they can't talk when they're in vampire mode. It's like they lose all the ability to actually communicate. Denny? Oh! Oh! Right in the back. Right in the back. Oh. The voodoo goes on forever. Yeah, I'm not so sure this is as good as better paced as the original, though. I'm not so sure about that now. I mean, it's slightly longer. There are scenes in this which could have been trimmed down a bit, I think, but there's still a lot other elements that I really, really like, particularly the music and the cinematography, and William Marshall. He made it happen. He made it. He made it happen. It was working. It was working. And despite her pleas for Blacula not to hurt anybody, he still hurts all of them. It's like, if you only were just a little bit more patient, she was willing to do the voodoo ceremony again with you. Like, just be a little bit more patient here, Blacula. Just a little bit more. Coming up here on 1 hour and 29 minutes. 1 hour and 29 minutes. And we got about 7 minutes left to go as we deal with the final scenes in Scream Blacula Scream. Damn. That might have been Craig T. Nelson. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know. We know who he's not in this movie, that's for sure. But yeah. Like I said, if anybody can find him, give me a timestamp. Because I'm dying to know where the hell Craig T. Nelson is in this movie. No! Don't hurt him! Sorry, Blacula doesn't think like that. He just doesn't think like that. I'm not sure there would have been a lot of clamoring for a third Blacula film back in '74. Although that Blackenstein film, I'll tell you what, I will never watch that. I'd rather watch the Count Yorga movies. Yeah, Craig T. Nelson made his film debut in a movie where a black vampire kicks his ass. How about that, huh? How about that? His bow shooter is busted, so now he has to use his last arrow just to stab it in Blacula. Stab it in Blacula's chest, and we end it all. We end the Blacula franchise finally. I could never harm you. But you've got to help me. Don't refuse me now. No, you just lost her trust and confidence, man. Yeah. If you had promised not to hurt anybody else, I think she would have been more than willing to do the ceremony with you. But no, you just have to be too rough with people. Too rough. Mama Walde. Come get some. I'm not the biggest fan of I'm not crazy about the makeup either, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I still enjoy both of these movies, and I'd still be willing to watch both of them again. I just don't think I can buy the Blu-ray. Although it would be interesting to see that Richard Lawson interview. It would definitely be interesting. I'm going to pass on it, though, to be perfectly honest. I decided to buy Night of the Lepus instead of Blacula. Just stabs the voodoo doll. And that finally gets him. I mean, whenever there's a voodoo doll in a movie, you know it's going to be stabbed or sliced or fucked with in some fashion. You know that's going to come. You know that's going to come. It's like if there's a Ouija board, you know that somebody's going to play the fucking Ouija board. that's right. Pam Grier is going to finish him off. Pam Grier is going to finally finish him off once and for all right here. Although I still like the death, and I still like Blacula's death in the first movie better than this one. To be perfectly honest. So yeah, we got 3 minutes left here. I wanted to say hi again to Rob Gasper and Cliff Booth and Brian Trash. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And anybody else watching or in the chat, thank you again for coming out tonight and watching the Blacula films with me. I mean, like, subscribe, recommend, all that's good stuff. I will see you here tomorrow in the afternoon for 5 Days, One Summer with Sean Connery. And then, like I said, next week at 1 a.m., we'll be doing Encounters of the Unknown, Daughters of Satan, and Night of the Lepus. And then next weekend, Halloween weekend, will, of course, be the spooky sextet of films that I mentioned before. Very insightful commentary tonight, Stone. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely interested in doing both these films. And so, yeah, we end on a song. I lived in an endless space so lonely. And we have the credits to Scream, Blacula, Scream. How could I face even one more night? How could I go on? So yeah, this is our cast for Scream, Blacula, Scream, pit number 1 and pit number 2. And like I said, we see Craig Nelson here in the cast as Sarge without the T. So, but anyway, like I said, if any of you guys can find him, please let me know where he is with a timestamp, as I would most definitely appreciate that. But anyway, that's Scream, Blacula, Scream, and Blacula the original. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and I will see you again very, very soon.